funny as a jumping off point, but like, are you familiar with like Takashi Miike's movies?
No, you're gonna find I'm pretty illiterate when it comes to films, and
that's fine.
You know what I mean?
That's
I'm in
fine.
a lot, but it's gonna be a learning curve for me.
Again, the reason why we did this was deep dives into unknown films, and like we're putting these movies that aren't in the discussion into the ether, and we're just like putting it back out there. Like, you guys need to watch these movies.
Yeah, it's a great mandate.
Yeah.
Joey brought up this movie called Man Bites Dog, which is like it's not French. It's like another small country next to France. I remember, but they're speaking
Belgium.
French.
Belgium.
Yes,
Belgium. That's right, Belgium.
But it's a French mockumentary about a film crew following a serial killer that they just like bumped into, and they're all just nothing artists. So they're like, "This is going to be our big movies. We're just going to follow
this is our college
this guy."
project.
Cool.
You know, and it's interesting because we're just doing this starting out, but that episode immediately got like 60 or 70 listens, and it was just like,
it's getting really big traction right now.
Nobody else has like brought this movie up like that. You know what I mean? So
the reviews and everything we were seeing were like 15, 20-minute reviews or breakdowns on like on a YouTube clip or something like that, or even on Reddit. They gave like a paragraph or two, and that was it. But we're like, we want to dig into this, so it became almost a 3-hour episode itself because it was there's so many layers to it and everything, and like the voice, like the cast, they all make extremely interesting decisions while they're like on camera. Yeah. But it's all in the universe of like we're being held hostage by a serial killer essentially.
Who's very boring and tedious.
Is that how he kills people?
It's fantastic. It's fantastic. It's such a wild movie.
But it's so cool because like there is this sort of like not like bigging ourselves up, but just saying it's interesting that like we have already kind of seen by talking about this movie that Joey just loves, but now we love because it's an awesome movie. Like immediately there was almost like a void that was filled of like people who probably watched that movie and were like, I need to hear someone talk about this because I don't know what the hell.
I know. Several of my coworkers were coming up to me like, hey, I listened to your show and like I wanted to watch that movie like right away, and like I checked it out and it's messed up, man.
Yeah.
Cool.
So I'm hoping similarly with slashes.
Yeah, there'll be a whole new.
That's what it became for us.
Resurgence.
That's literally what it became for us. We just fell in love immediately.
Right on.
We should do the intro because
let's just stumble
it came into my life. Fair enough.
Well, I mean, screw it. I'll just keep all that shit in. Welcome to the Devil's Word podcast. We are here today with an absolutely amazing guest. I am so honored to have you here on the show, sir. I am Sideshow with Evelyn and Skeptik, and today we are joined by Neil Napier. As also known as Chainsaw Charlie and the Preacher Man from Slashers. We are absolutely floored right now. We you could tell in our excitement. We are so happy that you can join us today. Thank you so much for being here.
Awesome, man. It's my pleasure, guys. It's I'm glad that that film came into your life.
Absolutely. And this is the man that we have to thank. It's all due to Skeptik. Thank you so much.
This was like when we first started talking about this movie. This and a couple of Miike's films, who's a Japanese director. I love his work. But this, a couple Miike films, a couple other things immediately came to mind. And when we first started putting the list together of movies, early on I was like, oh, we're going to do slashers next. And then I went online and I was like, I can't find it anywhere. And the only thing I could find was on Amazon for $150 the DVD.
$150?
Yeah.
$150.
Yeah. You need to know.
I'll sell you my copy for $125.
You know what? That deal. Chainsaw Charlie's copy? I would have paid $155. But so I was like, oh no, I gotta pull the brakes. How am I gonna find this movie? And so we ended up having to sail the 7 seas to get it.
Okay.
But when I was a kid, when I was like 11 or 12, I just found it at the video rental store.
Oh, wow.
Me and my sister and my best friend at the time, kids, you just go there once or twice a week, look for movies, something looks interesting, and it's Preacher Man on the cover.
Yep.
That's just lived in my head forever.
Very sorry about that.
Well, it's awesome, just thinking back to the days of just being able to pick a movie in 5 minutes based off the cover. whatever.
Yep.
And we just took that home, watched it. I think we watched it like twice the same night.
Really?
And it was just like so mesmerizing to us. And it's just funny, like when I still lived in that town, we would rent it like every couple of years to watch again. And like me and my sister used to not get along very well. And now we get along really well. But when we were kids, there was a lot of like friction and stuff. But we both loved this movie.
Chainsaw Charlie was like a counselor.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
In like a weird way.
He always struck me as a family counselor.
Yeah,
Charlie.
absolutely.
Kinda what I
That's a
was going
family
for.
man. He's a family man
Yeah.
for sure.
I can't stop doing the voice around my house.
Can we hear it?
Hold on, y'all. You're not listening to each other. That's naughty. No, nice.
That's awesome.
I got the seal of approval. Communication.
Oh man, yeah. No, I mean, he brought it to our attention, and we were just like, I don't think anybody's really ever heard of this movie. You know,
Not a lot of
we were
people
just
have,
like,
yeah.
I was like, whoa, this is insane. And then like I saw the cover, and I saw the trailer and everything. I was like, this looks awesome. I don't care like what I'm getting. I just want it. Like,
Wicked.
and yeah, absolutely. When we threw it on, I was floored instantly. There's no like let up for this, and I always wanted to see you guys on screen. You guys were my favorite part. I was just like
All the slashers.
all the
Yeah.
slashers.
Yeah.
All the slashers were my favorite part for sure.
You guys singular.
And the doctor.
The Doctor's fantastic.
He
Absolutely,
was
Yeah.
great too.
Yeah.
absolutely fantastic.
It's funny because when I first watched the movie, I do remember thinking like as a kid, oh, he played both of those roles. That's pretty cool.
It was pretty cool.
And I didn't like
Yeah.
know really anything at
Okay.
that point about filmmaking, and I don't know a lot more now at this point. But it was like I just did think that was super cool when I was a kid.
It was pretty cool, and it was the director rewrote the script a little bit so that the characters didn't appear in the same scenes. 'Cause
Fun.
originally, there were a few.
Oh,
Yeah, that was like it was my first film, and I'd done like a couple of little things. But it was my first time I got paid, right? Like
Absolutely.
$150 a day or something. It was a non-union deal. I remember that audition. I went in. I had to prepare both characters. So I did, and I just played them
Wow.
over the top like WWF characters. And
that's
I remember
so fun.
Yeah,
I
it was a
totally
blast.
see
It's
that.
so
At
fun.
the beginning, they are all just like totally cutting promos.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I'm gonna chop.
So I played it like that, and I remember Morris, the director, Morris Devereaux, came out from behind the desk. He's like, "Okay, you're in my movie. I don't know which character yet, but I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna look it over. I'm gonna go through all my tapes and see which one I have in my auditions of, and what I don't have. I'm gonna give you that role. I don't know which one it is."
Had he picked out the slashers that he wanted to put in the movie yet, or because
Yeah,
there are
he-
other ones?
That's an
Yeah,
interesting question. That's
yeah.
a great question.
Had he picked out this?
like
'cause
in the
there's-
intro of the show, they have
yeah.
all these slashers that
Oh
you
yeah,
don't
yeah,
get to see.
yeah. It was already written that way.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Interesting.
it was the
Sam.
3 slashers. Yeah.
That's
And
so
he
fun.
called me like the week later, and he's like, "Hey Neil, I have a bit of a dilemma. I really like both of those interpretations best out of all I have for both of them."
Wild.
He goes, "How would you feel about playing both?" I'm like, "If it's possible, sure. Why
Absolutely.
not? I don't know what I'm doing anyway." And he goes, "Okay, let me look at the script, and if I can, I'll try to like just rewrite a little bit." And he managed to do it and played both
Wow.
roles, and it was a blast.
Nice.
cool.
Switching back and forth.
Was it always intended that one person would play the both roles, or was
No.
it just because
No,
you
I
charmed them?
Because he was so good.
I think I charmed him. Yeah, it's just sometimes you just kind of hit on like the interpretation that resonates with the director, right?
Yeah. That's
fantastic.
And I guess both of those interpretations happen to be that way.
Oh wow!
So did you auditioned for did you tape for this?
No, I went in.
Okay.
Yeah, I went in. This was in Montreal. That's where I'm from originally, is Montreal, and this was shot in Montreal. And yeah, it's actually. Do you have a minute? This is a bit of a story.
Oh yeah.
Go ahead.
But it's also an
the floor
allegory.
is all yours, sir.
It's also an allegory for life, I think, about kind of confronting fears and saying yes to fears, right? And not like prejudging things, right? Like investigation prior to, contempt prior to investigation. Like always follow the sign.
Yeah.
So anyway, I was just starting out in acting. I was 31 years old, and I just kind of said, this is something I'm going to try. It's something I've always wanted to do. I'm just going to do it. And so I started throwing myself out. I'd done a lot of I did a lot of theater in church basements, fringe festival shows, and just started meeting people. And I just got an agent, and I remember there was this one audition we were going, he was sending me out to this one casting house, and he said, this is just a caveat, this is audition practice, because her father is a casting agent. Her father is a talent agent, and they always cast through his agency, but they have to have auditions. So I went into this one audition, didn't get it. So then what I was doing when I was trying to get my acting career going is I was scouring like online forums and like classified ads, looking for open auditions, things I could audition for, like crazy little films. And I've done some other crazy things early in my career. And this one came up. It was called Danger Zone. And so I called the number, and it was left. There was a message, and it says, "Hi, this is Piron Casting." And I was like, "That was a fucking casting company that," and I was like this to hang up because it's a waste of time. And I was like, "Hey, my name is Neil. I just saw your ad for Danger Zone. I'd love to come in and read." And left the message. So I ended up getting the call, and then went in. We're here talking about that film.
Interesting.
But what happened on this film is I ended up having a good relationship with Morris, the director. We did another film together called End of the Line, which I think you'd like.
Interesting.
It's set in a subway system. It's really crazy.
Sweet.
Oh, it's getting its own episode.
Yeah, for
About
sure.
a religious cult, like a doomsday cult.
Okay.
Yeah,
That sounds awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah.
1000% getting it.
It sounds like the Metro books. Do you know?
I don't know it.
It's similar. It's like nuclear winter, and it's set in Russia, and it's like the subway systems are where people live now, because that's
that's
just
fun.
what was safe,
Oh,
essentially.
cool. That sounds cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so End of the Line, look it up after. It's a fun
absolutely.
film. So it was Morris's second one. But after Slashers, he recommended me for this other thing called Sam Hain.
Oh, fun.
I don't know what that, and that was going to shoot in like Vilnius, Lithuania or something. And I was a non-union actor. I got cast in it, and then it flipped unions, so I became an ACTRA member, which is the Canadian
nice.
union.
Nice.
Yeah.
So that was my way into the union, and then it just started kind of unfolding into all these different opportunities that arose from that and connections. Next thing you know, I have an acting career.
Absolutely.
One phone call that I almost hung
Yeah.
up on.
Yeah.
Right? And it was a really instructive moment for me, just kind of like a life lesson of like,
That's
don't
so
hang
cool.
up that phone. Leave that message. Right?
Absolutely.
Kind
Yeah.
of cosmically or universally.
What did Michael Scott say? You miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
That was Wayne Gretzky.
Gretzky.
Sorry, as the Canadian in the room.
That's the joke in The Office. Is he literally writes
Yeah.
that, and then Wayne Gretzky, and then under that Michael Scott.
Oh, awesome. Okay, that's great.
He quotes himself quoting Wayne Gretzky. He's just a dick.
You know how to steal a quote, though, right? There's 3 steps to steal a quote. First time, as you said, as Wayne Gretzky says, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. Then the next time you say it, as I've said before, you miss 100% of the shots you never take. And then the third time you say, as I always say, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
You know, great artists steal.
Absolutely, yeah.
Proof.
That's fantastic. I mean, we've got plenty of questions for Slashers, so
I'm here.
absolutely. So
We
fire
figured
one off.
that
dude.
was perfect, because we figured we'd kind of like start talking about slashers and then sort of evolve into like the video game work and everything.
sure.
We absolutely
Yeah.
will get to all of it.
Yes.
Sure, man.
Penguin Thug over here, right? I think that's who you worked for in Gotham.
I think I was a Penguin Thug or something. I also like mocap some of the Batman stuff, just mocap, not
That's sick,
performance
though.
cast.
That's
So
awesome.
cool.
You did some of the bone breaking.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was some hanging stuff, like hanging off a building. I don't know what it was.
Whoa.
There's, mocap shoots are weird, man.
That's
because like,
cool.
especially if you're just doing like the body work, you're just kind of doing all kinds of things. You never know where you're
Working out.
Yeah, and you never really know where your data is going to end up in the game.
Yeah, it's interesting to see that, because you would say that like God of War and like some other games recently have like the mocap performance is also where they capture the voice, and and then they layer everything together, so then it is just literally like in God of War, for example, Kratos and his son are just a guy and a teenager who acted the whole game.
Yeah, full performance cap, which I've
interesting.
done. Like in Assassin's Creed 3, I play Charles Lee, and that's my face underneath his.
Oh, that's so cool.
Voice.
That's
yeah,
crazy.
It was like a holistic performance.
How does that like compare to like film work?
It's weird because there are no setups, right? Because you're shooting in 360 degrees. They're getting every size.
In like a warehouse
Right.
space.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
basically in a gymnasium in the volume, right? And so
Yeah.
you've got like 80 infrared cameras at all angles, and you're wearing all the reflectors, and the cameras are just emitting infrared light and
that's so
reading infrared
trippy.
light. And then you're represented as the point cloud on the. So everybody's first time in the volume. You see yourself on the monitor as like a stick figure, and everyone's doing new guy. He's doing the little new guy dance.
You guys.
The classic in the mirror.
Yeah, exactly. It's getting to the point now. Like I haven't done it in a few years, but it's at the point now where things are like rendered real time. So like the monitors in the
Yeah.
studio, you're seeing your rendered character.
That's
So there's
crazy.
That's wild.
It is wild. It's crazy. But so the biggest difference, well, few big differences. It's sort of this hybrid of kind of theater and film, in my opinion. Because you're doing long takes. So you know what I mean? So
I
like everything's
bet.
the master.
Yeah.
But they're also getting the close up, the medium, the
All
reverse.
in one go.
All in one go.
So much
The way
pressure.
3D models work is so interesting. Like even in terms of like hand animation, and then just being like, well, we don't feel like animating this crowd, so we just made the models that walk by or whatever.
Yep.
But like you said, that like 360, the like malleability of it.
Yeah,
is,
they've got every shot in one.
Yeah.
And they can come in, get maybe not the close up so much. They'll usually have like a handheld. It's not a camera. It's basically a pad. Do you know what I mean? A sensor that they're just kind of rolling around doing a little handheld close up stuff.
Interesting.
Yeah, I've seen how they do
Wow.
how they like animated some of the like newer animation films like Pixar and stuff. They'll do like something like that where they're filming in essentially in that world, but
Yeah.
it's just them waving that around in a room,
Yeah.
and it looks like you're in that world, just like a
It's-
VR.
Yeah, it's incredible.
That's
Technology
insane.
is mind blowing.
That's so fun, man.
And also, you have to apply your imagination to it more as an actor because you are in a warehouse, right?
Yeah.
And your horse is is made of wood.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So everything's like made with 2x4s with little tennis balls and.
You're having an emotional
there's-
scene with a dragon that isn't there.
Yeah.
What'd you say about Smaug the other day?
The whole situation with Benedict Cumberbatch is like laying on his belly in the smoke cap suit, and he's just
Like slithering around.
yeah. Well, he looks like he was having a ball.
Yeah.
It is fun.
There's
Yeah, my quote. I say it all the time. I didn't have to steal this one because it's actually mine.
This is a
You're
Neil
standing in
original.
the middle of the volume in a Velcro suit with all these reflective balls all over your body, and you're like, I'm an adult, and this is my job. I'm an adult person doing this.
This is
awesome.
what feeds me. Whoa.
Yeah.
Oh my
Crazy.
god, yeah.
That's
and I mean,
awesome.
you're playing dress up in a warehouse. It's pretty much what you did for slashers.
Yeah, totally.
It's the best of all worlds.
There's
A lot of time in warehouses.
there's this like shot that's become like a meme from a kind of recent game, Devil May Cry 5. There's like a lot of supernatural stuff and like demons and stuff going on in it, and this one character has like a demonic crow that's like his companion that talks to him. And there's this one shot that's like a low angle, and the guy is like in the foreground, and the bird is like up above him, and they're like talking, just having a expository conversation. And people will cut that with the behind the scenes, which is the dude in the mocap suit, and then there's a guy on a ladder, just dressed all in black, going,
It's all good. Sorry.
"Yeah, I didn't break anything," but yeah,
I
just
booby trapped it for you.
the wonderful arm flapping of this guy.
Yeah.
Just, I'm a bird. Let's do this.
But they actually had a dude and like dressed
That's
as a crow.
hilarious,
Like,
dude.
okay,
It's
That's above and beyond.
It's so funny. Yeah, the dude who directs those games is kind of a goofball, so I
Okay.
think he was having fun with some
right
things.
on.
Oh my god. Well, I'm so curious to learn more about slashers. I mean, if you don't mind.
Oh,
like-
of course. Let's get into it.
Yeah, I'm curious about like how how was it for the makeup getting in and out of those? Like, what was that like? Because the masks we were talking about are fantastic.
Yeah.
They look pretty
Actually,
extensive.
genuinely, really terrifying to look at.
Yeah,
so.
really amazing. That's Adrien Moreau, who is Adrien Moreau. Sorry, my French accent on it.
No.
absolutely.
Adrien Moreau.
No,
In,
We
please.
try to pronounce names correctly. but
Absolutely.
we can't.
Exactly.
So
And he's incredible at Maestro FX. I don't know if it's still, I think he's changed the name of it to Adrien Moreau. But yeah, he's an incredible artist. So he created all the masks, all the blood work, everything.
So fun.
All the FX. And we never did them on the same day. So I didn't do Preacher Man because jamming those contacts Preacher Man had, they weren't fitted to me because this was a low budget film, right?
okay.
So it was
Whoa, that's
Yeah.
gotta suck.
kind of sucked. So I only wanted those going in once. So
Yeah,
I just
yeah,
wore
yeah.
them all day.
Yeah.
Or through lunch, I didn't want to take them out and put them back in because
Oh my
I didn't
God.
know if they'd get back in.
Right.
frankly. You know what I mean?
yeah, didn't know if they'd get out.
Yeah.
Didn't know if they'd
exactly.
get out. And so the makeup wasn't really too onerous. There was a little bit because the masks were so good.
They were doing their work. Okay.
So I remember the tech Bruno. What a character this dude Bruno is. He's just kind of stocky dude, with long beard and tattoos. Really nasty looking dude, and the most gentle guy.
I identify.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, and so he was really good and really quick, but the masks were so good they were just kind of filling in around the eyes and around the mouth for Preacher
Yeah.
Man, and then Chainsaw Charlie was a set of teeth and a really good kind of mask that I think was modeled on Alfred E. Newman from the Mad magazine.
That's exactly.
That's what we
Literally
thought it was.
what we
yeah.
thought.
Yeah.
That's so
Yeah.
cool. We were right.
And it was
Vindication.
it just has such a spooky effect, that extra giant face with the big ears, and then it fits so well with your eyes.
Yeah.
It's just
Fantastic.
this perfect blend of
Yeah,
cartoon and real
It's
life.
a little uncanny valley.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas it's not as extreme as Preacher Man or The Doctor, not
Yeah.
as fleshy.
Yeah.
But it's just this weird plastic facade.
Yeah.
It's it's interesting.
And I think that also made for the interesting moment where he breaks character, which is
Yes.
Yeah.
Literally
That's-
our collective
That's our
favorite scene.
favorite
That's
scene.
the best scene
I
of the
too.
movie.
I get the
That's-
chef's kiss this moment in front of the man himself. To me, that and the moment before Preacher Man dies are the highlights
Yeah.
of both, because when Preacher Man dies, it's kind of the classic narrative, okay, how are they going to get out of this? There's no sensible way that this happens. She's going to jump on his back, not do anything. He's going to kill Brenda, and then it's bad for her. But then, they spend all this time being he's the rookie, he's the rookie, he's the rookie. And we were talking about how you don't really get that sense from a lot of it, except for right before he dies when they're just yelling at each other back and forth. And she's like, get out of here. No, I'm not going to leave you. I don't care what happens. And, you start going
indecision.
at that last moment of oh, shit, what should I really do here?
Yeah.
And that's exactly why he dies.
Why he dies,
Yeah. So that and hey, come on, man, I got a wife and kids. This is a job.
I love that
this is
so
nothing
much.
to me. Yeah, those
But
are
okay, well, I want to.
fantastic
Yeah, I want
moments.
to ask what was the direction of that? You were always meant to break character in there, so
Yeah.
that's what that was meant. Okay, that's so fun.
That was Morris's writing. And
That's so fun.
He's a really interesting cat. He's moments like that. I mean, you've seen the film. It's an over the top kind of extravaganza, and I know that some of the acting of the contestants was a little over the top.
Very much
and
so.
It made sense for our stuff to be over the top as the slashers. But he really wanted this, the moment of the humanity
Yeah.
to poke through. Because at the same time, the over-the-top performances by the contestants, they're all performing, right? These characters are all performing because it's like Survivor.
Yeah.
There's no authentic moments in Survivor, really.
Yeah.
Right.
Because everybody is aware of the camera at all times,
Yeah.
right? So there's no reality TV, right? There's unscripted.
There are no
Yeah.
private conversations.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. There's no private
unscripted,
moments.
but still coached.
Yeah.
Which even in this with Hideo kind of
Yeah.
being you should fucking talk about it or something
Yeah,
bad's
some
gonna
bad-
happen.
Yeah, exactly.
And these contestants they're vying for whatever $6 million, whatever it is, and
Yeah,
they're trying to
something
give
like
a performance, and so that over the top that was an interesting little distinction that, I'm not sure if it fully worked, of Morris kind of allowing these sort of arch.
It did. I'll tell you right now.
Because it is
absolutely
the characters performing, and maybe not being actors.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
And it gave some context to, I was wondering at the beginning of the film, like, I understand why the contestants are wearing these collars, but also the slashers are wearing them? Interesting.
Yeah, we're all in the same boat.
Yeah.
He really wanted these two, like, moments of real, like, true humanity. We get the moment just with the decision with Preacher Man of like, oh, fuck, this is just a dude trying to, how does this work?
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
I'm fucking confused.
This is like one of my first shows. This is still weird to me.
What am I supposed to do now?
Yeah.
But the moment with Chainsaw Charlie where he actually breaks and has that little bit of dialogue, like dropping and it's a little jarring, right? Because you go from like,
it is,
folks, to just
he did the
a
thing.
straight up kind of dude talking about his family.
But still with that face.
Dude,
That face and those curls.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And those fucking biceps, man.
Man, yeah, that's
Did what I could.
absolutely. Really, that man eats his Wheaties.
Running guns from Canada, you know?
Yeah, that was a really cool moment. That was my favorite one. I remember looking forward to shooting that bit.
That's so cool.
It's interesting because I don't know if it's like just my own sort of like stances in life, or if it's meant, but it kind of seems like it's sort of just meant to be like there's no ethical consumption kind of thing of just like this is a job. That's what it is these dudes are like they could not do anything better, so they murder people for money. And kind of like going in, I think when I was younger I used to just always think, or at least like to begin with, like these are serial killers they've like captured that are like actual serial killers. But now kind of with more of a developed brain and like paying more attention fully, and then having that big moment, it's just like, no, these are just guys that they hired to do this, and like what the hell
Who
is
are
going
almost
on?
captive.
Like, this is okay.
Yeah, they're almost captive themselves too with the collars and everything.
Yeah.
It's like that adds another element to it that you're just like, that's very interesting, because you figure they're all just psychopaths that they just got off the street and we're just like, all right, go ahead, get at them.
Yeah, this is my job, and picturing that guy with a family and kids, and
that's so funny.
Goes home and hangs up the overalls and puts the kids to bed.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I love little moments like that, even in like this crazy world of that film. You know, a little bit of humanity. Yeah.
And what was it like it was essentially, it looks like a paintball arena. That's literally what it was, right?
Literally
That's
a paintball arena,
That's I called that much, so I was just like, it feels like that. What was that like, getting to run around? I figured as much. I figured.
Yeah, what time of year did you shoot?
I don't remember. I think it was spring. So spring in Montreal is like this right now.
Very rainy.
Big
Rainy.
Yeah, rainy and a little chilly. Maybe colder than this, probably about 40 degrees or something.
And people running around without shirts on.
Yeah, running around without shirts. What was that dude's name? I can't remember his name. The big dude, big black dude. He was jacked, man.
Yeah, he was huge. That was a funny moment when it was like a little eye candy for the ladies.
Yeah.
There's a lot of shirt swapping going on
a lot
in the
of
first act.
This movie is actually just the most complicated swap meet you've ever seen.
That's right. It's all pretext for that. And that scene, the one scene, they did a great job, I thought, of like making it look like one take.
Yes.
And there were long takes.
Yeah,
there weren't that
really
many
long.
cuts.
Yeah, that was what I was wondering about, these very, very long conversations between the characters, and it doesn't exactly matter if someone flubs something, but to a degree, like if someone messed something up, like
and any technical element goes off the rails. Yeah,
right.
Yeah, you've got to start again. So there was a lot of, in a short time. I think we shot it in like 15 or 20 days or something like that.
Wow, that's intense.
Yeah, so, and there was a lot of, we just had to rehearse these long sequences because a lot of them would kind of go out from a big long dialogue scene into an action, into chase or something. So there are often a lot of elements and not a ton of cuts built in. He tried to build in as many cuts as he could to not
going past
with like transitions with exactly the walls.
And they're pretty well hidden.
They are,
honestly, especially for like the time and the budget.
Exactly.
And it's like his first film, right?
His second film.
His
First
second
one
film.
was Lady in the Lake, I think, or Lady in the Water. Another kind of creepy horror film.
Interesting.
Yeah, but it was his first budgeted one, I think. Well, budgeted. I think it was
Okay.
150,000 Canadian dollars,
Yeah.
which is nothing.
Hey, it's better than what I got right
And I
now.
think he just had to make it because I think it was like this whole financing thing that like a bond collapsed or something, and it was an
Wow.
insurance thing, and they just had to make the movie in order to like it fell apart.
So the stakes
Kind of
were
a
high.
cool problem to have.
Yeah,
The stakes were high in the background, just like they were on
yeah,
screen.
totally.
It's interesting that you would bring that up because we hadn't thought to like talk about it, but me and Sideshow make hip hop, and
cool.
I really, in a weird way, it's funny that I love slasher so much. My two favorite rappers are from Halifax.
Oh, really?
Yeah, this tattoo is one of their album covers. Just two dudes from Nova Scotia that do
That's great.
weird, just weird rap.
Very cool.
And it just made me realize, like, rap doesn't have to be about any certain thing. It could be,
Yeah.
it could be whatever.
Yeah.
But it's just kind of interesting. I'm realizing that
Yeah.
like, kind of connection in my brain.
Well, because like you guys put on these like characters, these over the top characters in the movie, and it's like that's sort of like what I've done with my own persona too with Sideshow. Like I put on this persona, and it's like of over the top, goofy villain from a movie, essentially. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? That's
yeah.
kind of like what and I talk about like horror, and I talk about like scary movies and stuff. Like I literally just talk about everything in my movie, in my music.
When are we gonna get you two like facing off in the squared circle? Because I'm realizing you're both basically wrestlers. At this point.
Yeah, exactly. But it's that persona. It's putting on that persona. It's that larger than life kind of like persona. It's because like I could make music about whatever my experiences and stuff, and I do some of the time. But it's like it's more interesting and fun
Putting that through a lens.
to put it through a lens.
Put
Exactly.
it through
Like
some sort of metaphorical
Yeah.
lens in some way to make it more than just being like, yeah, I'm fucked up. Let me talk about it.
Yeah, and there's also a license to putting on a character, and like a really well delineated character.
Yeah.
Like I find, like I just put on, like for Chainsaw Charlie, I put on that mask, and I have
it just
no
came to
choice.
you. Yeah. No
You know,
choice. I love that.
It's just what it is, It was really weird,
Yeah.
like how it's kind of jarring when he
Yeah.
drops character. It was weird for me to like not have this like high pitched Southern accent for that while wearing
That's
it.
so funny.
That's really method because I feel like that's what you would have to do in that job, and like a lot of people already sort of have to like mentally distance themselves from like what they do for whatever reason because it's miserable or whatever.
Yeah.
But being like, when I put this mask on, I have to be this other person because when I go home to put my kids to bed, like I can't psychologically have those like
overlap. Yeah.
Well, I don't know if it was that dangerous, but
well, no, I mean like
I
for
do-
Chainsaw Charlie, like in universe.
yeah, oh yeah, in universe
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
yeah,
Of,
yeah,
like,
yeah,
having
yeah.
that same thing of like I need to play this role because I need to mentally be able to separate or I will not be healthy.
Oh yeah,
you know?
absolutely. And I mean, look, there is catharsis, right? Like that's that kind of release through art, right?
Yeah.
That you, I'm sure, experience with Sideshow,
Absolutely.
right? It's we work something out through
Absolutely.
it, and it gives us license and permission to do that. I find that in acting is very much the same way, right? We can experience catharsis through it, of kind of working out our shit through it in a kind of safe environment.
1,000%. And your quote, I'm an adult, this is my job now. That's got to be fantastic to like be able to play dress up and go do that all the time. You know?
I forget what the distinction is. It's like Dionysian art and like some other category, but it's basically like the like painting and music and sculpture as opposed to like dance and physical performance and acting.
Making something versus being something.
Yeah, and it's
Interesting.
just interesting as like a maker style artist to be like, this is so foreign to me, but also so like fascinating. Just like what this other headspace must be like.
How do you mean?
know?
You're a musical artist.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I mean, it's the same thing. I think I'm not. Do you know what I mean? But I would imagine. I mean, there is a lot of yourself in because you are the instrument.
Yeah,
Right. I think that's
absolutely.
the distinction, right? I mean, the painter is the instrument as well, but the product is not the painter, right? Like the end product's not the
Yeah.
painter. The end product
Yeah.
is you, your voice, your psyche.
Yeah.
Same with the actor. So I don't know a lot of like studio artists really well. I've not had this kind of discussion with studio artists whose output is not their own flesh or voice.
Yeah.
But I know I've maybe we can get into it later if we want to talk about theater. I had like a psychic rift at one point during a play I was doing. I thought I went.
Nope, we're getting into that right
thought I
now,
went
sir.
insane.
Nope, we're getting into that right now, sir.
For sure.
Nope.
Do go on.
Please, absolutely.
Please, yeah.
That sounds fascinating.
Get into that later. Yeah.
No, right now. I really want to hear. I'm
Sure,
so,
yeah.
yeah.
It'll be a digression if we're talking about this.
No,
So
please.
this is probably about 15 years ago, maybe. I was doing a play in Montreal. I did a lot of theater in Montreal, and I was doing this play called The Caretaker, which is a Harold Pinter play. And I played this character, Aston. It sees, so The Caretaker, I'm going to try to really, it's set like in the 60s in London, in this big old West London rambling house. There are two brothers, Mick and Aston. Aston is schizophrenic. He's a really kind of gentle, dangerous character. And he brings home this little kind of scrappy homeless guy to have tea. He just kind of helps him out because he's very helpful. And Mick is a very suspicious dude, And so anyway, the story basically what happens is the homeless guy kind of starts manipulating the two brothers and playing them off each other. Anyway, so there's the whole thing with Aston, this character. He was like, quite tragic because there was so much pain in the second act. It's a 3-act play. It's like almost 3 hours. He describes electroshock therapy in his youth, but he's not like emotionally connected to it. Do you know what I mean? So
That's terrifying.
So there's so much pain and trauma in his story that he is disconnected from. So, I don't know if it was like being a relatively inexperienced actor or what. I kind of chalk it up to that. I was taking on all this pain that I wasn't experiencing in the play. Like every eight nights a week, 3 hours, taking all this on, not experiencing, not having. There's one moment where he kind of, this 8-minute monologue where he's describing in a very detached way, and he builds up into this kind of like explosion and then just shuts back down. He's like, but I'm feeling much better now. And continues on. And
That's chilling.
Just puts it back away.
yeah,
I'm so intrigued to watch this.
puts it back away. It's gone. It's
Yeah,
theater.
I would love to watch that.
And so I remember one night I was in my kitchen and I was having an argument with my girlfriend at the time about something I don't know, and I was like not making sense. I was so agitated and I was just like and like I couldn't let go of whatever emotion had me, and it didn't make sense, and I knew it didn't make sense, and I could see in her face like, what the fuck is going on? I'm a pretty reasonable guy. And then I just had this image of Aston, of the character, me on stage as the character, and I just broke down crying and I lost it. And it was just, and I think it was, I was just holding on to all this pain and all this trauma of this character that I knew about intimately, that I've been living with for probably about 2-3 months at this point with rehearsal and performance.
You have to have it in your mind at all times.
Yeah, and I just lost it. And like I really had this, like I was standing outside my body, and it was the weirdest thing, one of the weirdest things I've ever experienced. And then I was afraid afterwards, and I'm like, oh fuck, I just blew it. I'm gonna suck on stage tomorrow, right? Like, because I think
you used up the juice.
Yeah, you know what I mean. I had this sense that I needed to experience the pain and the trauma of the character, right? If you're talking about method, right? Which I am not a method actor, and
Just accidentally this one time.
yeah, totally. It was like accidental method. I'm gonna write a book, The Accidental Method.
You had your Daniel day.
Yeah, for my one Daniel day. And so I was afraid that I'd lost the juice, right? That I'd let it go, that I needed to retain that in order to be able to deliver a performance. And I went on stage frightful the next day, but my preparation kicked in, and the performance was not the same because it never is, but it was the character. I had the character, and it was an actually instructive moment for me of like, I don't need to take on the pain of a character. I can separate my personal life
That's
from
fascinating.
my artistic life.
That's genuinely fascinating because it's something I've actually like gone back and forth with in my own head. Is just like, do I like, I think like most people, my best writing comes when I'm at my lowest points. And that's just. It is what it is, and I wish it wasn't.
And that fear of like, if things get better,
If my life is good,
am I done? Is that it for me?
Did I use up the juice in my own self?
Yeah, like art is suffering only. Right?
Absolutely. But I've actually gone back and like now like that things are going relatively well in my life, and I've gone back and written things. It's like it's still like you said, it's still that emotion is still there, but I have like that knowledge that I don't have to suffer for it.
It's funny because speaking about that, like my artist name is Skeptik, and that was a name someone else gave me because that's just how I've always been. I'm like
question
very
everything.
Analytical. If I don't like a thing, I'll say it. Like I just and a lot of people used to not like that about me, but it was like I'm not trying to trash you or your taste. Like we're talking about this art, and that's just my take on it. Like I watched it, I took it apart. I didn't take it positively, but like I did pull all the layers apart in my own way. Type thing. But, like you said, a lot of my music is, like reflections of my feelings in certain ways, talking about being depressed, and the metaphor in the song is like there's a rain cloud only over my house and it's flooding my house and no one else even knows it's raining, type thing. But it's like, I don't really write a lot of like happy music. Like I more try to move through that.
Happy music.
But Sideshow has a song called Bottoms Up that's like it's like a drinking song.
Fun.
Thank you.
It's awesome. But like you said, like you retained, like you didn't like sell out or like lose that edge. You're like being joyous and finding this thing, but it's so quintessentially you.
Yeah.
Like it's such a perfect reflection of like
it's a
who you are as an
visceral,
artist.
like the lyrics are visceral, but like the song is happy and joyous, and it's weird. It's like
it's got like
it's a weird
Irish
balance.
drinking
Well, I
song
like that
kind of
counterpoint.
feel.
Like that counterpoint's really interesting in art too. That was one of the interesting things. Oh God, I have a lot of points right here.
No, please.
First off, it's all valid.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like all
absolutely.
of it. Like fucking writing from pain, acting from pain, singing from pain as catharsis, as a way to process our existence.
Yeah.
100% valid, but it is not necessary to create beautiful art.
Yeah.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean?
That's very fair.
And it's all valid,
Yeah.
and and I love the juxtaposition of tones, lyrically and musically.
I play with that so much.
Yeah.
I love that.
It's interesting, right? And like in this character I was talking about, Aston, really heavy. And the director I worked with, rest in peace, Douglas Campbell, who was like an icon of Canadian theater. He was a founder of the Stratford Film Festival, which is one of the biggest theater festivals in the world.
I've definitely heard that.
Yeah,
before.
it's a Shakespearean.
Wow.
Yeah, and so he was later in his life, and it was the last play he directed, and I'm very grateful.
Wow.
And his son is the singer for a band called Stars, which you should look up.
I'm
They're
absolutely
amazing.
gonna-
Torquil Campbell. He's an incredible musician, incredible artist, intense dude. And
Hard same.
and so in putting together the character of Aston, I was falling into this trap of the heaviness of it, and Douglas directed me away from that and made him very light. So all his vocal patterning was very light. It was the most physically not excruciating, but physically demanding role I've ever done. But there was nothing to it. The thing was, I'm on this huge stage, leather-soled shoes on wooden stage, and I told myself there are going to be no angles on his movements. He's going to make no noise when he walks. He's going to glide everywhere without looking careful. So the amount of control it took just to move as Aston was like huge, because everything was just like he just had to move and like couldn't make any noise with his feet. I told myself he just can't take that noise, and there were no angles. Everything was just smooth. And when he spoke, like if he was rolling a cigarette, all this heaviness to him, and he'd go, "You want to roll yourself one of these?" It would be very quick and like his speech, but it was like the subject was the content was very heavy, and I loved that juxtaposition.
Neil, I hate to break it to you, but I think you're a method actor.
Not quite. Not if we look at like Stanislavski.
Yeah.
Like I'm not a student of Stanislavski.
No, but I really appreciate the way you take on the character's like mindset, even in that this wouldn't work in the context of what this character's thinking.
Yeah,
like, that's so fascinating.
And sometimes it takes time. There's this one scene where he's making up a bed for the homeless dude, for Davies. And it's this little bed upstage, I guess it's upstage right, it was, the bed. And then there are all these suitcases way across the stage, downstage, left. And he was going to make the bed the way his mother made his bed, and it was going to be perfect. And it's going to take what time it takes. And so I would slowly walk across the stage, and it took 4 or 5 minutes for me to make this bed. Pick up the suitcase, fold it. If I did it wrong, I had to redo it. Because
that's what he would do.
He would do.
Yeah.
And my back's to the audience, and I'm just making this bed while this other character's just watching me. And it's going to take 4 minutes. And in my mind, I'm like, sorry, everyone. This is how long it takes.
Damn.
And a couple of my friends were like, I was terrified during that scene.
Oh, that's so...
Which was not my intention at all.
But that's got to be so interesting. Yeah, that's got to be so interesting to hear, too. Because I talk about that all the time. Like, I never know what things are going to be as I'm making them.
Yeah.
And then it's only until afterwards when people tell me, like, I felt, like, very moved by that. I'm just like... Really? That's interesting.
Yeah.
You know, like
it's not up to us to decide the receiver, right?
Absolutely.
How it's going to be received,
Absolutely.
and we just have to commit to the moment, whatever the moment is. And I think that's just true of anything in our lives. You know, if we can
1000%.
Commit to the moment.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You know? And then the rest is up to a higher authority, right?
Yeah,
Whether it's an audience, a higher power.
Exactly.
It's funny because we were just talking about Skinamarink a little bit right before this, but it's one of those movies where you're fascinated and you want to just know things about it when it's done. But reading the director, be like, whatever you think is it. Like there's no answer. Whatever you think is it. It's yours now. It's like literally he said, it's yours now.
Oh, really? I love that.
I'm a big believer in, like, once you create something and put it out, it's no longer yours. Like, you don't own it. It's up to someone else to interpret it and receive it.
It's pretty powerful, I think, though, to just literally be like, I will never tell you my interpretation of it because it doesn't matter. That's like the most insane, just like power play.
Yeah.
Just pass you in the hallway. Hey, whatever you think, man. Just like, okay.
Yeah. And it's interesting, right? Because the message isn't complete until it's received, right? Like the loop is not complete until it's received, and that's a thing about. I think what the payoff for me in doing theater is that loop is closed immediately. As you're going through.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's interesting. That's a really cool way to think about it.
And like live
immediate catharsis.
You've closed the loop.
Yeah.
And it's a complete thing. Whereas like with film, video games, the whole, you're part of this organism as an actor that doesn't even come together for maybe 6 months down the road.
Right.
You know what I mean? So the message has not even been transmitted.
That's so interesting.
And then when you see it, you're like, that wasn't the message I was putting out. This is the editor's message.
Yeah. That's also got to be interesting too. Like how much of yourself gets, lost in the cutting room floor.
What your intentions are, as opposed to what ends up on screen.
That's so fascinating. I never really even thought about that as an actor, like what you would be like, the tension you'd be feeling in the lead up to the release.
And it's interesting. I've never been like protecting my performance in that way, right? Of kind of like looking out ahead and going, what are they going to do with this? You know what I mean? And then try to manipulate it. I know a lot of actors do, and they kind of have to, if you have a brand, if you have a...
That's the thing too, I imagine. A lot of red tape gets built around once you start getting more and more, accessible to people, I guess.
Yeah, because I mean, look, you can change your track with a few edits and make it a very different thing.
Yeah,
right. In the same way with film, right? I mean, man, you can change a performance just like with 4 seconds. You cut out that look, or you leave that look in. 180 degree shift.
It's kind of like from our perspective, like the closest thing would be like when a friend is like, "Oh, I'm working on an album. Would you contribute something to this?" And then you're just like, kind of a common thing that happens. Not going to name names, but I'm sure you've experienced too. People are like, "I'm really excited about this. Like, let me get a part from you for this song." You send it,
Nothing ever happens.
comes out.
Nothing ever happens.
And so there's that, or the album does come out, but it comes out 6
Without
9
you.
months later,
Yeah.
and the song's completely different.
Yeah.
You did a hook for it, but they replaced that with a different hook, and you're just like, oh, I didn't know like what was gonna happen here,
Yeah.
but okay. You
Yeah,
know?
we have to not be precious about it, right? Or
Exactly.
we don't agree to it.
Yeah.
Like, right?
That's
like,
the word I've always used, is not
Yeah.
being precious about my work. That's
Yeah.
so funny that we're on the
Yeah.
same way.
Yeah, that'll get you stuck if you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, I think we need to revere it and respect it, but not be precious about it. I think we're speaking the same language there.
1000%. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I love how collaborative hip hop is. That's something that like I've really enjoyed from the start. How you could just like have a group of friends and everyone can participate in this thing, and it's so easy to just put the microphone in front of somebody's face and like make a song together. But then putting that into context as I like got older, thought about it more of like film and video games are like the ultimate collaboration of.
Yeah.
200 people of different disciplines coming together
Yeah.
to make this thing.
Sheer
like it's,
willpower.
Yeah,
Forcing
it's
things together.
mind-boggling that like we think building the pyramids is impressive. Like
Try making a film.
I've tried to be in a band with 4 people. I can't imagine.
Try working around
a
schedules.
production with 200 people.
Yeah, dude.
Like,
Yeah.
That's insane.
A miracle films get made.
yeah.
But like, I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, even going back to your career, like how, I mean, obviously we talked a little bit about that, but like, how was that decision? What led you there? Like, what was the tract of like, I'm gonna do this now, and like, now this is just what I do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
it's,
Like, when did that flip happen essentially for you? Like, now I'm an actor, and now I'm doing this after Slashers. Essentially, what happened?
Well, it kind of happened before that, right? It was just prior to that. Spinal surgery, really, is what
Wow.
kind of did it. So in 1996, I got sober, right? So in 2000, I was about 4 years sober. And in those times, and I'm now like 20, fuck, I'm old. Like 26 years sober or something like
Congrats,
that.
dude.
Wow,
That's
congratulations.
serious.
Congratulations.
Addiction runs in my family in a real serious way.
Oh, really?
So
Okay.
I got a lot of respect for that.
Right on. It's
Really.
there's a point to which it's not a lot of my doing. There was like there's some things I live my life differently now, but a lot of it is just turning a lot of stuff over. I don't want to get too far down a spiritual rabbit hole, but that's kind of
We'll go as
where
far
that
as you
is.
want.
For sure, whatever works for you.
But I'll back up to what we're actually talking about.
no.
So the context is, I get sober in 1996. I'm kind of figuring out what I'm going to do with the rest of my life. I was 26 years old when I got sober. I went back to school, took a little sociology, a little mysticism, and
Interesting.
That's
I-
fascinating.
yeah, I got back into playing sports. I was playing rugby again, and then in I think 98, 99, I started experiencing a lot of like sciatic pain. Turned out I had a tumor in my spine, on like my L4, L3, between L3 and L4. It wasn't cancer, but I had to have a surgery. So I had this major surgery, like 6.5 hours. They thought I wasn't going to be able to really walk properly after because they were going to have
God.
to sacrifice a nerve root.
Whoa.
And it went well. They got it out, and I started playing rugby again, I think the next year. But in the interim, I was laid up for about 3-4 weeks before I could really walk at all. And a buddy of mine who lived in Toronto, he had lived in Montreal when I first got sober, and he was my first sponsor. And then he moved back to Toronto. He's an actor, and he's now a filmmaker, and he teaches film. And so he moved back to Toronto. So then I had this surgery, and he came in to meet with agents and do some stuff, have some auditions, and he was sleeping on my couch. And we were having this talk, and we were just, kind of having a bit of a drunkalogue. We were talking a bit about the old days, both our drinking careers and stuff. Like I had I used to, when I was drinking, I'd like climb bridges, like up the cables.
Jesus Christ.
I'd been in a couple like nasty car accidents where I'd like flipped a truck.
Oh
and
my
like head-on
God.
collisions and all kinds. I played contact sports all my life, football, rugby, and hockey. And And my buddy, he's like, dude, you should get into stunt work.
Absolutely.
And I was like,
Yeah, get paid to put your body through that.
totally. I
Beat
thought that
yourself
was
to shit, make some money out.
funny. So I thought that was a great idea. And I knew a stunt coordinator in Montreal, and I wasn't ready to start training by any stretch because I just had spinal surgery.
Yeah.
But I started getting information, right? So I was like, hey, so we met a few times. It's like, this is how you put up a resume, put together a resume when you get there. You can start one and, put a couple of fictional things. Just don't worry about it.
Right.
And, these are the people you start training with, train with this guy to learn like high falls, train with this guy to learn fighting, train with this guy to learn like ratchets and rams and stuff like that. And train with me if you want to learn how to drive, because he was a driver.
That's so fun.
And so I was like, great. And so when I just was starting to get a little bit better, I could get out and walk. I go, you know what? Why don't I kind of get used to putting myself out there a little bit? And so I grabbed the Montreal Mirror, which is like, what is it here? The kind of free weekly.
Oh, like the LA Weekly.
Yeah, like the LA Weekly.
Yeah.
And in the back, they're classified ads, and they had like open audition calls, people looking for things. And I remember that week there were two. There was one for sexual perversity in Chicago, the play, the Mammoth play, which is a little production, and then some independent thriller film. I'm like, I'll go to these, just audition. I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
So I went, didn't get the play, and then the other guy cast me as one of the leads in his little independent film. And so I called my buddy. I'm like, I just went to this audition for this film that I think he cares about, and he just cast me as one of the leads. He's like, awesome. I go, dude, I feel like a fraud. I'm not an actor. And he's like, well, if you want to be an actor, get used to that.
Yeah.
It's all lying all the time.
He's like, and you'll always feel like an imposter.
That's so funny.
And so I did that film, and he was like, it was terrible. Sorry if dudes hearing this podcast, but if you're a filmmaker, it's not a good film.
Yeah, we've all been there.
And,
we all got to throw a song in the trash.
Yeah. So you'll never see that one.
Yeah.
And so he was like a killer rapist, and one of the first scenes I did was this rape scene where it wasn't super graphic, but it was intense, where I'm beating up this young woman and ripping off her shirt and stuff like that. And, check in and make sure everything's safe and everybody's comfortable and stuff. And I do it. And I was like terrified that I'd like it. Do you know what? I don't know.
That's
I don't
intense,
do
man.
things.
That's intense for your first role. That's fucking intense.
Yeah.
What if this is too much fun?
Yeah, exactly. Like a legitimate. I was
Yeah.
like, what if I like this?
That's so fucking
and
crazy,
I did
man.
not.
Yeah, good.
And so we do that, and I stand up, and I'm just like, and I'm
You're
like,
the one traumatized.
totally. I'm like, are you okay? And she's, yep, I'm good. Like,
She's
she'd been
shaking it
doing
with you.
And she's like, I'm good, all good.
That's-
Kind of fist bump, and I walked off into the woods and just kind of had to meditate for 10 minutes
Oh,
and just kind
man.
of come down.
Yeah.
Like,
But it was catharsis,
Yeah.
right? And like in a context, I'm gonna get into like just kind of like recovery context, like in my sobriety, one of the things I talk about, and I examine are my character defects or shortcomings, right? And and we kind of turn that around and look at it and try to be different people.
Yeah.
And so in this experience, I was seeing that like this is actual catharsis. I can all of a sudden take all these kind of character defects, things, in my instinctual self that don't work for me in my personal life and that I am working to overcome or get around. All of a sudden right now become kind of assets. I can use my powers for good, not evil.
That's so funny.
In storytelling, and that was really attractive to me.
Yeah.
And so then I was like, it's not going to be stunt work. Stunt work and stunties are amazing. I've worked with some amazing guys, but it's very task oriented and technical.
Yeah.
Right? It's not. It has to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it's you get two actors untrained doing a stunt, one or both are getting hurt.
Yeah, lives are at risk. Yeah.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Because we engage in the truth of the moment and stuff. And we're not thinking about inches and
Yep.
yeah.
Exactly.
It's funny. It just keeps coming back to wrestling, but it's the same thing. Like you just have to know how to do it.
Yeah.
And then you're fine.
Yeah.
But if you have no idea,
If you have no idea.
it's going to be like ICP jumping off the roof into tables in their backyard.
Yeah.
You know, like people
But
are losing their
wrestlers are
lives.
really amazing because they're doing high-level stunt work
Yeah.
with performance,
With
with like
theater. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Which is
Yeah.
a thing, man.
It is a high level of acting, which is so funny. Wrestling's fake. Yeah, bro. So
So?
is
It's
so are
theater.
movies.
It's storytelling.
Yeah.
Like, I don't
So is Daniel Day-Lewis, man.
yeah.
That shit's fake. It's not
Like,
real.
I don't know what to tell you, but Lincoln actually died.
Not the dude.
Yeah.
You know, it's a different it's a different modality. It's just a different tone. So that experience of shooting that film is what got me into wanting to pursue an acting career.
That's so fun. I mean, and it sounds like you did still stay very active with your roles, like in terms of physical, feats. And I mean, Slashers is no excuse or no exception to that rule. So
Yeah, and I always wanted to do as much of the stunts as they would let me. Do you know what I mean? Within reality. And there are times when I'm like, no, I'm not qualified to do that. But like fights, I love like doing my own fights and stuff. And you know, like there was this one I did this film with Aaron Eckhart where we have this fight and he beats the shit out of me and then I kill myself. And
shit.
That's when you get beat up by Harvey Dent. You just gotta, you gotta hang it up at that point.
Take that out.
and I do. It's a gun in the mouth afterwards and I'm done. And
Thanks for smoking.
but we did it, you know, and it was a good example of and we both committed and we rehearsed it and we had great fight coordinators, but when we were doing it, we were committing to it. So my head was getting bounced off the table, and by the end of the day,
God.
I had nicks and cuts all over my face because we were overcommitting.
Yeah.
Because we were into the thing.
Giving
You know
people
what I mean?
their money's worth.
Yeah. So the next day we went back in chrono, right? So we were, shooting a scene that happened before my death scene.
That's so funny.
And I had to go in and the makeup's like, what the fuck? Because my cheeks were a little puffy, so they had to make it all up. And then it was like inverse FX makeup.
That's so
When
funny.
it took it off at the end of the day.
The
I'm like,
no makeup look.
Totally. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And I remember there was one stunt, and I wanted to do it all. I'm gung ho. And then there's this one thing where he has me like in a finger lock and he swipes my legs and I go through a glass table.
It's always a glass table.
And I'm
man.
like, I'll do that. Like, so squibs are going to go and you just kind of go. And they're like, yeah. And so in the rehearsal, my stunt double, this guy, Marc-André Brisebois, who's amazing, in the rehearsal did it. Squib didn't go off. And so he bounces off this tempered glass.
That
He's
sucks.
Because he knows how to protect himself and sell it.
Yeah.
I would have been like, so it's going to explode?
Yeah.
I'm going to give you the shot. I'm going to put my chin right through this table. I would have been knocked out cold had I not gone like,
And that
not my job.
that affects, your confidence and trust moving forward.
Yeah.
So experience something like that doesn't go the way it's supposed to.
Yeah, do you know what I mean? So like stepping back and knowing your role and letting the professionals step in and do their job is key.
It's so funny. I think it was the Always Sunny podcast that I was listening to, where they were talking about that same thing of like just things not going to plan and just having to like deal with it in the moment.
Yeah. You have no choice but to keep it rolling. Like, but it's so much. I mean, it's terrifying when lives are at stake, I guess. But it's like I kind of guess that kind of comes with the territory when it's stunt work. It's kind of inherent that injuries are probably going to happen.
But let the stunt guys do it, like the major stuff, because they're trained for it. They spend a lot of time training to do this safely, and they're all about safety. So I can't let my ego about supersede safety. But something like Slashers, this is I don't really remember a stunt coordinator on that. Do you know what I mean? And I'm like, yeah, man, I'll do it. And nobody got hurt.
Nobody got any splinters.
There might have been a few splinters. There's a lot of plywood
It was
around.
more a happy accident than anything.
But like I did a fall into a bag when after when Chainsaw Charlie meets his end,
off the bridge of doom, the bridge of death.
Bridge of death, that was fun to do.
The plywood board of death.
The fourth killer.
So much plywood.
It's so funny because like now looking at it, it's like so obvious. Literally everything that dude says the whole movie is just like, I sure would enjoy killing a woman. Like, it's just like, he's just from the very beginning, like, I don't want to say too much, but I sure do love Dr. Ripper. He's so great, you know?
Ooh, is that Chainsaw?
No. His name was Michael, I think.
Michael.
Michael,
Kieran.
Yeah.
Who never stopped smiling the whole
Never
time.
stopped
He's
smiling.
like
Creepiest one in the
Way
film.
too excited to be on that show.
Yeah.
The twist, the secret fourth killer.
Yeah.
Like, looking at it now, he's just like, woo, the whole time.
Yeah.
Just way too
fangirling.
stoked.
Again, a really nice, like, totally gentle dude. Kieran.
Oh, I bet everyone was a sweetheart on set. Like, it just
Yeah.
seems like a lot of love went into this movie. It feels like, you know, like you guys all felt like you guys were dedicated to making something fun.
Yeah, and
you know?
things like that. I mean, I'm sure you guys all know you've worked on kind of lower budget projects where it's just a matter of like, everybody's bought in. You know, and everybody wants it to
Everyone's
happen.
committed.
That's what this is.
That-
This whole
Yeah.
show. You know,
Yeah.
that's literally
Collaborative
what. That's what this show is. Like we've always had a passion for horror films and just films in general. But like
A few years ago, me and he was like, "Oh, I just got into Mike," and I was like, "Oh, bro, you got to watch Ichi the Killer. You got to check out La Horror."
Yeah, and literally it just
you
snowballed.
Have you seen like how it shifted from Japan to France for several years, and like this whole era, like,
and we literally got into it. Now I have two Ichi the Killer tattoos. This is modeled after.
The character with like
the main
extensive
character
facial scars.
has scars on his face, so that's
awesome.
that's what my tattoos are modeled after. But it's
very
like,
cool.
Yeah.
I never imagined I couldn't be doing this podcast with anyone else because they understand what this is and what it means to me, because it means the same to them.
And it's a really powerful bonding experience. Yeah, like on this one on Slashers, I became really good friends with Carolina Pla, who I can't remember the characters' names, but I cut her in half with a chainsaw.
Yeah.
That's not Brenda. That's the one who has MS.
Yeah,
She also has
that's
a
the
B
mom.
name, but I can't remember what it is.
Yeah.
That was crazy. See?
That was a great
was a
scene.
crazy
That was a
scene.
great
It was
scene.
very cool.
When Megan, she's dead. No, steal her shirt. that moment like really kills me. It's so fun because it's so
So
horrific
funny.
to dig through somebody's guts.
Yeah.
But then it's like the objective is just like, I don't want anyone to see my nipples.
Yeah, that's right.
It's kind of a small thing, and like at that point in your life,
but,
you know?
it's like you get in a car crash and you're like, and everything's horrific. And you're like, did I leave the stove on?
Yeah, totally.
That disconnect because you can't be there at that moment.
Yeah.
You
God,
have to
that's-
be somewhere else. We were talking about like all the stunts and everything, and I think it's a pretty good segue for like what you were saying when we were talking about his skill set, and you were saying like did the stunt awareness like really stood out to you and sort of like all of the things going on at once
In Slashers or
in Slashers.
yeah. I mean, I'm also curious about like the takes are so long and the actors moving around with the Steadicam operator was a weird thing to me. Like was it Steadicam?
Yeah, it was all Steadicam.
That-
One guy.
That man was working. It was only leg day for him.
Yeah. God, I can't remember his name right now. Very funny French dude. Well, they're all
Very
French.
good work.
Oh, that's so
Yeah.
funny. I was gonna ask if he was actually a Japanese person
No.
because it is.
That
it-
was-
it-
I
This
think
is
that was just a
voiceover.
voice.
Yeah,
Yeah,
voiceover,
VO.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting how it's like such a weirdly layered film. Like I never knew it was a Canadian film. It was just a movie I rented from down the
When
street.
you were describing
know?
it to us, I was like, okay, so it's Japanese or no? Like,
Yeah.
I wasn't sure
it's
what
the
we were
ultimate-
It's
getting.
America by way of Canada.
It's the all-American episode of a Japanese game show through the lens of a Canadian film.
Exactly.
Like, just like
what?
So layered.
we were trying to explain it last night to their friend Houston, who I just met, and he was like, "So it's Japanese? No." So it's just we'll send you a link. It'll wash over you, and we'll talk about it after.
It will change you.
I was a little worried putting this one into the conversation because I was like, I know what it means to me, and to me it's very similar to like The Cube. I don't know if you ever seen that movie.
Yes, I think I have.
Where it's like also like it's not like a technical marvel, but it's a very fascinating film. Like I could see someone being like the Cube sucks, and I'd be like, okay, yeah, if you're talking about from the perspective of what movies are like now, like for sure. I think it's a really awesome moment in time, though.
Yeah, and it was very ambitious.
Yeah, but similarly, I was a little like worried that this thing that I love, that's like, you know, rough around the edges, I was like not sure how they were going to receive it. But then we just all gushed over it.
Yeah, unanimously
and
loved
we
it.
just,
It's
we,
just so fun.
Yeah,
we kept,
it is so much
I think
fun.
it kind of leans into its campiness a little bit. So
Yeah. It
does,
I think that's
it does.
helpful.
Yeah,
You know?
that self-awareness definitely helps. And then I think having the like centered performances of, you know, both of your performances and Dr. Ripper, like really center it, because like you said, they're also heightened. And it makes sense now. Brenda is the one who's like literally a fame seeker, where everyone else gets like an actual backstory,
Right.
and all she gets is she wants to be a model.
She wants to be a model.
She wants to be a
Yeah.
model. It truly doesn't matter at that point, because
Yeah.
it's just like the vapidness or whatever. Fame, like putting the horse before the cart. I want to be famous. I don't know what for.
know what for.
Yeah,
Don't know what
exactly.
for, but I
It's
know.
sort of prescient, right? Like I look at, 20 years down the road now, I look at some of the two films that I did of Morris. It's kind of weird calling it Maurice.
It's fine.
Definitely
Absolutely.
pronounce people's
And,
names correctly.
it's all
We're
good.
down.
And but what he's kind of looking at back in 2001, he probably wrote this in 99 or 2000
Yeah.
or something,
Yeah.
about like reality television just kind of the commodification.
Capitalism.
That's
Yeah.
what we got. Yeah. Out
Do you
of
know
it
what I mean?
Immediately.
Yeah.
Yeah.
20 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
right? You look
And
at what
then-
it is now, and like with social media, and this is before any social media.
Mm-hmm.
And you just kind of go like, yes, it's fame seeking in the character of Brenda.
Yeah.
It's just want to be like IG famous kind of thing.
Yeah, literally. She's just an influencer now.
That-
Like, that's all it is.
That's why it's like so devastating when he signs her his handiwork.
Oh,
Yeah.
the
It's
DR
like-
on her face.
It really is
yeah.
like just such
Yeah.
a horrible thing to do to someone in general, but to someone who like that's all they are is that face.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. Like we were kind of talking about Mandy recently, and it's like a revenge film, but it's done very well. And it's like it's hard to sell. Oh, this guy's girlfriend got murdered, and now he's got to do this thing, and have that actually be like valid and good.
Right.
Right.
Correction. It's hard to sell for anyone but Nicolas Cage.
Yeah.
Right.
but kind of similarly with Brenda, where it's like you don't want to be misogynistic or sexist or like come off the wrong way, but it does, very validly illuminate this kind of person and this kind of character without being like over the top, or like it is campy, but without being like mean to her.
Yeah.
It's just like this is just who she is. That's just what's going on
And
with
she
her.
just shouldn't have been on the show.
Yeah, it's just not a good enough.
Shouldn't have been there.
It's not a good enough
Yeah,
reason to
yeah.
tangle with serial
Yeah.
killers.
Yeah, totally.
None of their reasons really are.
You need to
Honestly.
re-examine your life choices.
Man. But I love that it also gave way to, gave way, but it was in the same time period as we were kind of exploring this idea of that during, I think, film in the 2000s. Like it was this, like we look at Japanese films, we've covered it quite a bit on this show already, and it's like during that time period in the 2000s, they were worried about technology and what that was going to mean for us, and it was the fear of the internet.
Ring,
Yeah.
one missed call,
Ring,
all
exactly.
of that.
Like
yeah.
all of these movies were like, what's gonna happen when we all can get to each other like that? Like when we can all reach each other like very, very quickly. And it's like this. I think this film and like others like Battle Royale and stuff like that.
Suicide Club.
Suicide
Talking
Club,
about
yeah,
that,
exactly.
Which is just about Japanese kids just start committing mass suicide.
Okay.
And it's just, is there a supernatural element? Is it peer pressure? Is it that they're hearing about this thing and it's like trendy? And it's just
The internet.
yeah.
The internet, literally,
Very scary
the villain
place.
is the internet.
And it's
Yeah.
literally just if someone could go online and put up a forum and say, we're going to start a suicide club, like it's out there and it's going to get traction.
Yeah, and it's interesting. Films explore that, right? Like just that take it to its kind of almost absurd conclusion, right? Like kind of beyond. But is it anymore? I don't know.
Right.
Yeah, we just watched Crimes of the Future by Cronenberg, which is a fantastic movie,
Fantastic movie.
but basically in a weird way it ends up being about pollution and all the microplastics.
I was not expecting that.
That
was just about, people fetish cutting themselves.
Well, that's the thing too. That's a movie that like
I was there for the fetish petting. I didn't.
literally. I was
Then I
like,
got
'cause
this global message.
I had never seen a movie that had like glorified body modification
Like
before, like
romanticized
romanticized it, and that's kind of literally that I talk about on the episode. that's the reason why I got my face tattoos.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was just because I like saw this movie and I was like, oh, this is actually beautiful, and like people modifying the way they see themselves is like important,
and it's crazy how it just comes back to like really the thesis of the film is as humans we have created these things that will outlast us and will continue to have impact on the world forever. We've created and manufactured things that will never break down.
Yeah.
So it's like you don't expect that going into a movie about what if cutting yourself with sex.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, a bit of a left turn there.
Exactly. But like
Yeah.
we love the fact, this is why we like talking about these movies, is because of the fact that like slashers, we didn't expect to get a whole lot of meaning out of it, but it's like those scenes like you were talking about, the scene with Charlie breaking character, and then the preacher man, the hesitation. It was like these were scenes that were, you could see there's artistry in there. Like there's a lot of schlock, maybe there's a lot of camp, there's a lot of
undoubtedly.
Yeah, absolutely. But there are these little moments that stood out and they mean something. And I think that's what we're digging through the pile to get to. Essentially,
Yeah, totally. And the whole premise of like the pursuit of fame, the pursuit of at any cost, right?
Yeah. And that still resonates. Like we have Squid Game now, which is
exactly
not all that far off.
Yeah, not all that far off.
It's
a little more sophisticated.
It's funny because I love Battle Royale, the book and the film.
Okay.
And it's funny how much it has directly influenced, like in terms of like the Hunger Games is just straight up Battle Royale, just taken to a little bit of a different direction.
Got it.
But it's interesting because I looked at the timeline and it works out so that there's no way Maurice could have been influenced by Battle Royale, because the book came out in 99 and the movie was in development in 2000 and the movie came out in 2001. So it's literally like at the same time.
Interesting, right?
And
It's
obviously
so
like
fascinating.
the most dangerous game is kind of like the first thing of that, of hunting people.
Okay.
You know what I mean? But it's interesting because like as a huge fan of Battle Royale all the time, I'm like, oh, well, this is like a cool, valid extrapolation of these tropes and ideas. This is just it. This is just literally like Battle Royale. So look at this thing and be like, whoa, that's crazy. They were for sure having very similar thoughts
at the same time.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. But I mean, guess from here we'll go into where did the video game work come in? How did that come in?
I would say before we get into that, because I was like, from what Evelyn had wrote down, we've pretty much talked about a lot.
You don't have to do them all.
For sure. But I think that this is worthy of bringing up because it was something that we all said about it.
Yeah.
The movie is like an interactive haunted house.
Oh yeah.
It's like you're just
That's
on
right.
the
Didn't mean to ask
rails.
about this. Thank you.
It's like it almost feels like when you're on like a Disney ride and like when they like get down to the bottom, the elevator, and then Hideo like goes out in the hallway and turns around and like twists around and all this, and then flips back to see them. It kind of feels like when you're like on a Disney ride and they show you like this is what's going on, this is the setting type video, and then the door opens and the roller coaster starts going down the track. And Evelyn put a note here that there's points in time where they just forget the prize. They just
They
just like
do.
kind of forget the prize, and
At certain junctures, that's like they're not really thinking about money. I don't think.
Megan's not even there for money in the first place.
Yeah.
It becomes survival. I think David might be the character's name, the really ripped dude we were talking about earlier.
I can't remember.
But he's just there to, face off against them. He's trained like a
it's a
boxer.
challenge, right?
I loved that. And then the whole like, oh, good thing we knocked off Preacher Man because I couldn't have like.
He's
dealt with
strategizing
him.
the whole time.
Yeah. It's so cool and like such an interesting ride.
Yeah, and people's different motivations for the same objective, right?
Yeah.
You're doing this thing, and everybody has a different reason for doing it. And it is like that interactive. That's an interesting that interactive ride because it sort of felt a little bit like that shooting it.
Interesting.
Yeah, because we're just
so
running around
fascinating.
this place, and because it's all these long takes, it's a pretty integral it seems weird to say this about this film, but like a very integrated performance.
Yeah. Well, we felt
fucking slashers.
No, like we felt like I was like, oh, these guys had to be like scare actors or something, like to have this sort of like background or something like that. But like you even pointing out the fact that it was like you took from wrestling. That makes sense to me now.
So,
like that,
so much.
that connects so many dots. Like,
Hulk Hogan, I'm coming for you. I'm a bad man.
I could go for a sequel, honestly.
absolutely.
I think we can cast Skeptik as the new. I'm too old for it now, man.
The next one to put on the chainsaw mask.
Yeah.
Chainsaw Charlie, fresh blood.
I gotta get my guns up.
That's it, yeah. A little bit of gym work. That's it. It's not so much.
Man.
But yeah, it was a blast running around in there, man, and just like again, like I'm a grown up and this is my job, you know. Although it was very new to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I think it comes off as that. You know what I mean? It's this sort of. I don't want to be like reading too much into this film, but you know,
That's what we're here for.
yeah, when you
what we're
think
here
about it, right? Like you know, amusement parks and you know these theme. When haunts weren't really a thing back then, right? Like
I think it was like building towards
It was
it.
like
It was kind of
I think they were
starting.
burgeoning. Yeah,
Yeah,
they
it
weren't
was
really.
real
It
new.
was, it was very on the cusp of
niche.
it. Yeah.
Niche. There'd
Yeah.
be like a couple, probably around here, like down in LA, and then I'm from the Bay Area.
Okay.
So like maybe a couple up there, but more like word of mouth
yeah,
kind of stuff
real
at that
hipsters.
point. Yeah.
We know this place, and nobody really knows about it.
Yeah.
yeah.
And you might get killed there.
They have chainsaws,
No
but
one's
the
sure.
chain's not running, so he'll
Yeah,
come in with it
yeah.
and put it on you, and he'll scare the shit out of you.
You know how many hipsters it takes to screw in a light bulb, yeah?
No.
It's this really obscure number. You've probably never heard of it.
I love that.
Good
No,
one.
but like the idea of like what is sort of like fun and innocuous, you know, in that presentation of it, it's kind of exciting to go in, right? Like it's Disney. Like what can be more harmless than Disney?
Yeah. Yeah.
Then you're walking into this, you know, you might not make it out, you know?
Yeah.
And this whole, I think I don't know, there's a creepiness to it for me of setting something up that's innocuous and maybe childlike, you know, this is, you know, and also shooting in a place where, you know, people are having fun and there are no real stakes.
Yeah.
But it's, you know, the ultimate high stakes. And also just like the whole idea of, you know, in what Morris was going for, I think, is that kind of social commentary about just the commodification of us, of our experience.
Of human life.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
commodification of human life, and like I know that he was really disenchanted with the ubiquity of reality TV, you know, and I know
Yeah.
that he had, I think it was the Japanese game Endurance or something that he kind of he gave him this kind of seed
Interesting.
of the idea of just like the ridiculous things people will do.
Yeah,
But like
yeah.
with the love room and everything.
Yeah.
Like, oh, we'll stop trying to kill you
That
if you're
was-
having sex.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was
We give us
so
something else to
disturbing.
watch.
I forgot about the love room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's very much born of like reality TV.
Yeah, very much.
Yeah,
Very
yeah,
much so.
because it's weird to think about that, but it is like when you're watching reality TV and then it'll show the scenes of like, oh, well, this guy went into the girls' dorm and now that like you could see him get into the cover with them and everything, and it's like you guys just full on filmed them fucking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You guys just
Yeah.
full on filmed that. Like
Yeah.
that's on a hard drive somewhere. It's
How are we all feeling about that?
It's strange,
Yeah.
like you said, like knowing the cameras are around all the time, but then also letting your guard down in like a moment like that where it's like this human drive just makes you be like, whatever, I don't care in the moment. The dumb shit that dudes do when we're
To
horny,
make
you know?
that makes
Yeah.
you say to hell with staying in place. I'm not. I'm letting him through.
Yeah,
Off the
right.
earpiece. Exactly. When he breaks character, it's like you have those moments. You're just like, nope, I'm not.
I'm not doing
nothing's
it.
worth
This
it.
isn't worth this.
Nothing's
Yeah.
worth this.
Yeah.
Like it's so interesting.
And sort of the build of that, you know, of the whole movie to that point of nobody realizes this isn't worth it.
Yeah.
Right? And
Yeah.
we're all
Yeah.
the rationalizations that we have to put ourselves through to allow ourselves to do certain things.
Yeah.
You know, and what our motives are.
Yeah.
it's funny because like people love to be down on like sex work. They're like, you're selling your body, but it's like that's what we all do. I used to drive a truck and carry crates upstairs.
Yeah, that's what labor
like,
is. That's what wage labor is.
Exactly.
Yeah, like
exactly.
You are selling your body. You are the commodity. Like that is what it is. It's
yeah. Well, that's a whole other podcast. Man.
Yeah. I was curious what the reception of the film was.
Well, we premiered it at Fantasia Film Fest in Montreal, which was small back then. It was it's a little bit bigger now. Like Mitch has really grown it a lot, Mitch Davis. And it was really well received to a live audience. Like they loved it.
I'm telling you.
And I presented as Chainsaw.
Oh, that's so awesome.
That's so cool.
We had the mask and the teeth and the outfit.
Dude,
and did a Q&A after as Chainsaw.
That's so cool.
You there in the back.
That is so fun. See, that's what I'm saying. That would have been the perfect place to see this. Like,
Yeah,
I would have
it was.
loved to
Yeah.
watch this in theaters with everybody.
Yeah. And I think we did another film festival that we went to. I can't remember if it was for that or for End of the Line or something. But then I don't know like how sales or anything went. It was, that's kind of out of my hands at that point.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
You got your 150 a day.
I got my sweet cake, 150 a day, man.
Honestly, 2001 or 2000, I guess, is probably when you were filming.
Yeah, 2000 and 2001.
150 wasn't too bad at that point.
No, it wasn't even great, but hey. But no, it was revolutionary if you've never been paid to do it.
Absolutely. That's the biggest thing. I think that's the biggest thing is like I got paid to do something I don't normally do. And
Yeah,
like
it's the first time you did a show and
they
handed
for
you
it.
$20.
Yep,
and you were
exactly.
Like, oh, I didn't know I was getting
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
I could buy dinner and a little gas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It is, right? Like it's an interesting mindset because yes, revolutionary to get paid for what you do, and also, fuck yes, we should get paid for what we do.
Absolutely.
Right? Like there's value to this.
1000%.
You know what I mean? And there's a bit of a oh boy, my wife just wrote an essay about this whole thing in the in kind of the industry today with like auditioning and worth. You know?
Oh. It lends into this conversation perfectly.
Yeah, I'll send it to you. It's an interesting read.
Please.
But yeah, about where we as artists, we are kind of programmed to devalue ourselves.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
To feel grateful that we're getting paid to do what we do.
It's a passion, and that should be enough. That you
Auditioning is your job. Fuck that, man. I get paid for a job. Auditioning is something else.
Exactly.
It's necessary.
Yep.
One of my like, he used to be my best friend for a long time, but we're not good anymore, unfortunately.
I'm sorry.
He was medicated for various things, and he decided to stop taking his medication, which just it happens.
Yeah.
But it created a friction. But he was also a rapper. We very much like sort of started our careers together, and always had that like symbiosis. But he was like, I don't ever want to have to charge for anything. I'm never going to sell my art. And it was like, well, that's nice, but you're 30 something and you're living with your parents, which no shame.
Yeah.
But for me, I only fully got out of my parents' house like a few years ago, but that was my goal, was to do that, to get out of there. And he was just like, I don't really care. Like, I've been homeless before. I don't need to charge for anything here. It's immoral to charge for art.
And that's his perspective. It's his standpoint, and I think that is an artist's prerogative, and that's an artist's empowerment, right? Like that's his power.
Yeah, for sure.
From the other side, it's from like the expectation from producers, advertisers, or the powers that be who hold the purse strings, that we should be grateful as artists to make a living doing our thing.
I put you on a show. I got you in front of people. You had exposure.
Getting paid and exposure. Getting paid and exposure.
Well, I'm gonna die of exposure.
Makes me fucking cringe, bro.
And that's sort of the trap of it, right? Because you also do need that, right? And there are people, the power structure that does have access to that, we are kind of beholden to, right?
Yeah, but views don't always translate to actual money. So
and somebody's making money somewhere along the way, and we should be getting a cut of it. It's interesting. I'm working more now in a different say. I'm not acting as much anymore. I'm working more in locations and location scouting and location management for films and commercials. And it's really interesting to see the shift in agency in my life right now, in terms of I can kind of decide what I do. And I'm a Teamster now, and that's a whole fucking different thing, you know. But like, I was just working on a film a while back, and it was really interesting. So the Teamsters, the drivers on film sets are Teamsters, and they're hardcore, man, and they have to be. And this one film I was doing, it was really problematic. Like, they were really making problems for the production. And in a lot of ways for me, because it was changing my logistics when they would refuse to do something. So it was making my life difficult. But at the same time, I was like, yep. Because the producers are going to try to get everything from the talent. They're going to try to get everything from the creatives, because we have skin in the game, right? Because we are on screen. We are the ones who are, you know, invested in the creative endeavor.
You don't got us, you don't got a movie.
Do you know what I mean? But we are invested, so we're going to do more. Do you know what I mean?
Of course.
Yeah, we'll rehearse a 2-act play in 5 days. Which is fucking crazy, but we can do it.
That's absurd.
It can be done, and
That's
then
absurd.
that becomes the expectation.
And then there's no walking it back.
And there's no walking back.
Bringing it back to capitalism.
Teamsters on a film set do not give a fuck.
Hey, I've worked. I'm actually part of IATSE in the Bay Area, but I've only worked on like music productions, like concerts and stuff. But yeah, they are very, very rude.
Well, because it's not that they're rude, but it's they're there to get paid.
No, for sure.
They're there to get paid, and they will not be rolled over by production.
They are so hard line about literally, if it's here, I'm not touching it. If it's here, it's in my domain.
And as a creative working in more logistical, and scouting is creative, and that's why I love it. But like when I'm managing, like working sets and managing sets, it becomes more logistical. And seeing that, having kind of the creative sensibility and having worked as an actor for 2 decades, because if they don't, producers are going to go here, and then they're going to be all up in your grill. They're going to have, and you're going to be paid nothing. And I was like, even though these Teamsters on this show were driving me crazy because it was making my life harder, I was like, fuck yes, because somebody has to. Because
that's fair.
They're not going to work for exposure.
I should rephrase, because it is like, it's just hardline, and it comes across that way to a grunt who's just pushing boxes. Because that's usually all I do for IATSE. I'm not an engineer or anything. I'm usually just pushing boxes. But it is that very hard line of like, nah, we've done that and this has happened, or like to your example, or we've done that and then something wasn't in the box, and then you guys tried to say it was us, and then
that can be a pain in the ass. But this particular thing, it was like, if this doesn't happen, the trucks aren't moving.
Yes.
And so the producers had to make the thing happen. And what do you know? They could find the money for it.
It's funny how
I got it right here.
You know what I mean? So, you know, as from a creative's perspective on that, going, well, we need that. Because it's harder for us because we're invested. You know, I get into like, I work way too hard because I'm like, it's just got to happen, man. The show must go on.
You like get lost in that sometimes.
You know what I mean? Teamsters don't. They're like, so the show doesn't happen.
I still am.
Show stops right here, buddy.
Like, that's for me. I don't get box office.
And I do respect that a lot.
I imagine it's beneficial for you having worked every angle of this before, and being able to see it from multiple perspectives, and being like, I understand it's a pain in the ass. But it's good that it's happening. You know?
And I've got to have both those perspectives. I think it's just, you know, it behooves us all to have, you know, as kind of open a perspective as we can.
Absolutely.
You know?
Absolutely.
That's a sort of, I mean, there are similarities in the theme to the short film that you and your wife made.
Oh, yeah.
That when I met you, that's what we were watching is...
Are You My Mommy?
Yeah.
You should see it. It's a good film.
I love that.
It's very fun.
I'm absolutely watching that.
And just these themes of, you know, the bullshit of Hollywood and these tropes of how certain characters are supposed to be. And then her finding her way through that bullshit and like rewriting it. It's very meta film.
Very meta film. It's you guys haven't seen it.
No. I haven't yet. No.
It's a short film that my wife wrote and we produced about 4 or 5 years ago.
So fun.
I'd never wanted to produce anything, but I read the script. I was like, oh fuck. And she's like, what? I'm like, we got to find somebody. And but yeah, basically it's you know it's a feminist film couched in a very male genre in an action film, and so
that's fun as hell.
Her character comes in at the beginning of the film, and it's interesting because it's not. She hijacks the narrative. It's not like she's stepping onto set and my character's going, "Hey, what the fuck? Who is this?" She hijacks the narrative, and is doing. And she was 48 when we did this, and she's not. She's an actor, but she doesn't look like a lot of actors that you see in Hollywood, and and she's doing all this kick-ass shit. Yeah. And all I'm asking is like, "What size are you? Like a size 18? Like, how old are you?"
That's so funny.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be saving me. This little waif over here, this Coachella girl, should be saving me.
She's like carrying
She's
you
carrying
across
me,
the
like
parking lot.
shooting guns, driving. Yeah,
Yeah, we're watching this immediately.
That's awesome.
yeah,
very
it's a lot of fun. Yeah.
That's so fun,
Yeah,
dude.
and my wife gave me some real choice lines in that one. Yeah,
I love it. I love
yeah.
it so much.
I'll send it to you after.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, your character's very much a douchebag.
Douchebag. Yeah. I'm the guy.
She's just sitting in the screening like,
Yeah. Well, we had a pretty big festival run, and in the Q&As afterwards, like, because nobody knows necessarily that we're married, and so in the Q&A, like, she go, "Yeah, it's my husband." And they're like, "What?" She goes,
Even
"Yeah."
after this?
this fucking guy.
Fucking guy. She's like, "I wrote it."
I was
Yeah.
curious how you guys met. Did you meet through film?
Theater. Yeah, we met on the Montreal theater scene. We had known each other for, I guess, probably about 3 or 4 years before we hooked up on a play that we were doing. And it's interesting. We had always met in like lobbies or foyers, home foyers at parties in the winter. So we had like hour-long conversations, both of us wearing parkas. Because I was always doing theater, so I was doing like 4 or 5 plays every year, and so I was always at the theater, and I'd get to parties at like midnight, and she'd likely be leaving. I'm like, "Hey, Paula, how you doing?" And we just chat for a while, and we really got along, and then
Ships of the night.
Ships in the night, yeah. And then I did a play with her, one of her best friends, this guy Quincy, and we played lovers, and we got to know each other really well. And I got to know Paula a little better. And we did a play together with a bunch of friends that one of our friends had written and her husband had directed. And then after it, we didn't have a showmance. It was like a post-show romance.
Showmance.
Yeah, we got together after, and and then we stayed together. We were in Montreal for a while, and that's where we met. She's from Portland, Oregon.
Right.
Then we moved to Toronto for a few years, and then we went to Vegas and got married by Elvis.
Oh,
Hell yeah.
It's awesome.
That's adorable.
Yeah. And then I got my green card, and we moved down to LA, and now I'm a citizen. So.
Nice.
Oh, man.
We're happy to have you.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Canada sent us their best and brightest.
Yeah.
And me.
We got what are they called? Philip and Terrence. We got.
Oh, yeah,
we got
Philip.
Philip and Terrence and Neil.
Yeah, Neil. Yeah, that's it.
That was the trade.
It's a fair trade.
Are we, is it cool to move on to the video games now, or?
Yeah, I think so. I think
let's like kind of round her up on that one. Like,
yeah.
So yeah, how did that kind of work get into? Because obviously theater and
you've stayed consistent through several different kind of things.
Exactly.
How do you mean?
Which as musicians, like we kind of have to do as well. We're like you're more of a solo musician. I work with a producer. Our group is called Double Dragon. So
Okay.
we have.
Good name.
Thank you. So we have that where it's like. Another person that I depend upon to be able to do this, but I also have other projects with other people because we can't always do that realistically.
Just
so I have
one
to,
thing.
have kind of like, eggs in different baskets, kind of.
Is that what you mean by remaining consistent?
In different ways?
Yeah, yeah.
Like when we look at your IMDb, it starts with slashers, but there's like a few things every year, and it might not always be acting, but there's some video game work, there's some, having that consistently doing something artistic.
Yeah. I think that's a very Montreal actor experience. I've had this conversation.
I'm sorry, I just realized, of course, you ended up in Arkham games because WB Montreal makes the Arkham games.
And Ubisoft.
Yes,
is-
and
Yeah, they said Montreal.
Yeah,
Just
so
about.
that's why I like
Yeah.
the Assassin's Creeds and the Division and,
Yeah.
Wild.
and things like that. Yeah. A lot of my...
Love those games, but
Yeah, they're great. Yeah, I haven't been doing a lot. I moved away from Montreal, and I was going back a little bit to do some of that, but then that work kind of dried up because it's There's a lot of really good actors in Montreal who've been doing that for a long time. So yeah, and they're awesome. Yeah, so a lot of my friends up there, like, you know, are fight choreographers and directors now for video games, and a lot of voice. There's a really tight voice community in Montreal that do a ton of work, and it's very closed. But that's kind of the Montreal experience, is everybody, there's not like a huge amount of film work, right? So you can't just be a film actor and make a living, you know? So you're also doing theater, you're doing some voice work, you're doing some video game work to kind of put your year together. That's been kind of mostly the experience up there. So I think that's kind of what informs my resume. You know, there's a little bit of voice work, not too much just voice work, but there's video game work. There's, you know, a little bit of, you know, there's films, like some big, you know, Hollywood films that come in and shoot there. Some Canadian television, a little bit of American television, and there's, you know, a lot of theater that doesn't end up on IMDb.
Exactly, yeah. But it's just like the defining factor of, like, it would just be so easy, like, for me as an example, to just be like, well, this is my project, and like the producer does all of our engineering as well. So he makes the music, I put the words over it, he does all the mixing, mastering, all of that stuff. So it's like I could just be like, well, I did that, so I'm done being an artist until it's out.
Right.
You know, or you have that drive to do other things. And I think that's I think that's one of the defining factors to be a successful artist, or like maybe respectable is not like the right word that I'm looking for, but like someone that I would say, like, yeah, that person does have that artistic drive. And the other thing would be, we kind of alluded to it earlier, the ability to self-criticize. The ability to make a bad song, make a bad movie, and look at it and be like, yeah, that wasn't great. I can pull some value from being able to say, not everything I make is fantastic because I made it. That's like that's such a trap for.
You gotta get that ego out of the way.
Which can be a challenge.
Absolutely.
Because of course you're going to be proud of things that you made, but you need to also have the mind for us to be like, yeah, that rhythmically that doesn't work, or I mean, kind of similar thing in acting of like, yeah, this rhythm or this
didn't work.
It didn't carry.
You know? Like, why are my eyebrows moving so much? I need to wrangle those eyebrows.
That's so funny. Like shit that we do not even consider like at all in our line of work. Like you guys have to be so hyper aware of.
It's so interesting, right? Because coming from theater doesn't matter, right? Because it's a bit of a bigger performance, right? So there's this whole, like, between theater and film and video games of attenuating your performance. Even like in a film, like from the master to the medium to the close-up, you're you know, you have more latitude to move in a master.
How much you're projecting.
And when you're full close-up, you can't move very much. It becomes distracting visually, you know, on the big screen. You're like, why is this fucking guy doing this? So stillness is a real thing, right? And I had some brilliant point, I'm sure.
They're all brilliant.
But that well, thank you. That
years of that Canadian medical grade.
Exactly, I
don't think anyone got that, but we just really looked into each other's soul right there. And there was a connection.
The knowing look.
The chiefin with Chainsaw Charlie.
But attenuating that performance is a real thing, you know. And I remember one of the first kind of, it was on some sci-fi show, but it was the first kind of multi-day arc that I had on a.
Was it Helix?
No.
Oh,
okay, that's what I was thinking.
Fantastic show, by the way.
That was a cool show.
It's really fucking good.
That was awesome. No, that was I love that, man. It went off the rails in the second season, but
it's so fun.
It's
so much fun.
No, it was this thing I did like right at the beginning of my career. I forget what it was, but it was some alien thing. And I remember the director saying to me, "Hey, Neil, you have a very expressive face." And I took that as a compliment. And only a couple of years later did I realize what he meant. I was like, oh, he's like, fucking tone down your fucking facial expression.
Pull it down.
Pull it down.
Tighten it up.
You have a very expressive face. Thank you. And then I was watching him like,
like,
wow.
I don't have the heart to tell him.
Yeah, totally.
He's like, that meant a lot.
Yeah. And I think it was a little too dynamic.
That's
you know what I mean?
Funny, dude.
And so it was. There was like this learning curve, this self-criticism of like, oh, there is value in kind of watching my stuff, because I go, I'm distracted by the things I'm doing. So how can I reel that in? And one really instructive moment was on a film, and it was something I already knew by this point, because it was like 2010, 2011 or something. But I remember doing, it was a film, Immortals, and with Mickey Rourke, and I played his kind of intelligence officer, the Beastmaster. So I always had this hawk on my arm the whole time.
Nice.
Very cool.
That's so cool.
It was like my favorite scene partner ever. It was a hawk.
That's so fun.
And Mickey Rourke at this time, he was a damaged cat, like really like lovely guy, but like, I think he was going through some things. And, and his memory wasn't really good. And so there's a scene where he kills me, gouges out my eyes, and I was warned by the his stunt double to protect myself, because he wasn't in control. Like
well, that's scary.
That was scary,
Scary.
And there was a bit of a pissing match, between me and Mickey. Not from me. He was just kind of like, I read it as like, here's a status test. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so he, like, I was just about to bail out at one point, and then I dropped to my knees and died. And then he's like, was that good? I'm like, yeah, that was good. That's fine. And then it was controlled and gentle after all that.
Interesting.
Do you know what I mean?
Oh, interesting.
And there's a few things in this story. One was like, how can I be of service to this situation? It's a question I ask myself every day, in every situation. How can I be of service to this situation, this person, this arrangement?
That's beautiful.
It's helpful, like when we're talking about trying to get my ego out of things. Yeah. Because, like, do you know who I am? Like, I should be getting, where is the thing?
Right.
Yeah.
If I can ask, instead of those questions, I can ask, how can I be of service? Boy, I have a better day.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so does everyone else.
So does everyone else,
Yeah.
And so what was instructive in this, in working with Mickey Rourke, and, my read was like, he had just come off The Wrestler, and this resurgence of his career.
That's what I was going to ask too. I think it was around that time of The Wrestler.
It was.
Right?
It was right after it,
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, that must be like a really insecure place to be, And then all of a sudden you're getting paid God knows how much to come on and do like a week on this movie.
Yeah. Yep.
And I know what imposter syndrome feels like. Maybe that happens to somebody like Mickey Rourke as well. I don't know.
Yeah.
So how can I be of service to Mickey Rourke and do what I can to make him be there for him, which is a very theater kind of, make your scene partner look good. That's your job.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Wrestling.
That's
what it is in wrestling.
That's what it is.
That's literally what it is.
Everything I know I learned from wrestling.
That's the. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go on.
That's the dual-edged sword of that, like, losing yourself in it. Of like, there's good and there's bad.
Yeah. And so what Tarsem, who was the director, after we wrapped, he thanked me. He goes, it was only the days that you were on set that Mickey stuck around for the other people's coverage, because he was just doing his coverage and then leaving, and his stunt double would do all the other people's coverage.
Okay.
But the days I was there, he stayed and did my coverage as well, and all the other actors' coverages.
Wow.
And I don't know if that was just a good day or if it has something to do with a certain attitude you bring in.
Connected
so
a
how
little
can we
bit.
affect the environment we're in by bringing our attitude on that day?
Yeah.
Don't know.
Yeah.
I like to think there's some influence of a good attitude.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But the really instructive part, so it was really difficult. It was problematic. Like, and I remember at one point thinking in the scene, I'm like, I can't imagine doing theater with this guy. Like, how is he getting hired? Like, it's a bit of a mess.
Like, he can murder me right now.
And then, but also just like with lines, and there was all this problematic stuff, and then I die, and I'm there for, when Lysander walks in and King Hyperion is washing his hands of my blood in a basin, and then they move into the close-up so I can get up off the ground, and I go to Video Village, and I'm watching, and it's a close-up of Mickey Rourke, head down, washing his hands, doing nothing. And I couldn't fucking take my eyes off him. And I'm like, that's why.
That's how. Yeah.
That's how.
Yeah.
Like, he has a charisma, and he has a stillness, and he has my wife talks about it as a turbine that characters have running in them. And some people have turbines that are just spinning and compelling, and other people's turbines are off.
That's awesome. I love that read.
And you can see it when, like, you're watching characters.
It's gorgeous.
In a scene, and these actors all have turbines.
Yeah.
And one actor doesn't have a turbine.
Oh man, I've never had a word for that until now. That's perfect.
I'm gonna think of it that way
absolutely.
Yeah.
That's so fun.
It's interesting because we didn't like really think about it going in, but it's just interesting how much we've sort of like touched on mental health. And earlier when you were talking about sort of like the like breakdown that you experienced of like losing yourself in it, you described it as like these feelings aren't real, but I'm feeling them. And that's how I try to describe like my clinical depression to people that don't understand is like no, it's not that I'm seeing the worst in things. It's that sometimes, even though everything is okay, I have these feelings that for me, the way that I have to contextualize it, the survival mechanism I figured out when I was 15 was these feelings aren't real. They are not rooted in anything. If I feel bad, I would like think back to the week before and be like, there's no stimulus to make me feel this way.
There was no like inciting event.
And yet.
And yet you're trapped in this, and sometimes that's what it is. It's like there's nothing wrong, but I feel absolutely horrible. I can't focus enough to like get to the next thing. But I just thought it was really interesting to hear because I'm explaining that to people. I've never really heard someone else say it, but it was interesting the way you contextualized that.
Interesting, because I don't suffer from depression. You know what I mean? So I don't know what it is to be caught in that, but I do maybe a little bit.
Yeah, but I recognize that just in terms of like, and I'm sitting there and I'm like, why are these feelings coming over me? And I'm not acting like myself.
Yeah.
And you're saying your girlfriend at the time is like, what the fuck is going on? This is not you. Yeah. And you're just sitting there going, I know it's not me, but I can't stop. This is just something else out of me.
Yeah. Something else was driving me.
And that's very much how it feels being like just being like overpoweringly depressed and just being like, what's wrong? Nothing is wrong.
I would submit though that the feelings are real.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, but that's a weird distinction, right?
It's how I have to like self-talk to get through it.
But
you're right. You're right.
Because what we're experiencing is always real.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
It's our own experience.
Whether the danger is real or not is different.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's like having that panic going off, like when you're having a panic attack and looking around and being like, I'm fine. I'm just sitting
There's
here
no clear and present danger.
But you're not fine.
Something in my brain chemistry just decided I had to have a panic attack right now. So kind of like that. There's an effect but no cause.
Yeah, and the effect is real. Like like the emotional state we are in is always real.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
That's what I always describe anxiety.
It's an overreaction or a not an overreaction, but like a non-commensurate reaction to the current conditions.
Yeah.
But the feelings are real.
I always describe that as like with suffering. I have generalized anxiety disorder, so it's like I always describe it as my fight or flight is always triggered.
Yeah.
There doesn't have to be a trigger.
Yeah.
There doesn't have to be an inciting event. It just is there, and I don't know, what it is. But again, I have years of therapy, and now I've gotten to where I can talk myself down from a heightened state.
And it takes work and practice, right?
Like it's never pretty. Never pretty.
And I think what is really, and I think it's getting better is, well, like trying to have to explain that to somebody, right? Because what it is like, well, just fucking don't feel that way. Right?
Yeah.
Like,
have you tried not feeling that way?
That helps. Yeah. Now, so one way to heighten my anxiety is to tell me to not feel anxious.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Amen.
It's that classic joke about, don't ever tell your wife to calm down.
And don't tell anyone to calm down. That works.
Quick way to get shot.
Just relax.
You're going to lose your neck talking like that around here.
Yeah. But it's an interesting thing, right? Because it can be managed, right? But like it can't. When I'm in a moment, and I don't suffer from generalized anxiety or depression, right? But I do have a rich emotional life, and sometimes can find myself in situations where I feel out of control, right? And in that moment, absent any other work I'm doing, I have no power to change the way I feel, So all that work has to happen before I'm in that state. And then I have tools that I can access. You know what I mean? It is a bit, I'm going to bring this back to kind of acting and theater acting. All I need to know is my first line. All I need to know.
I love that.
And that's how I feel about performance is like, I very much, like for a long time, and even now, I've been performing for like 12 years, but you'll always feel a little bit of weird apprehension, stage fright right before the moment.
Right before.
I hope so.
But as soon exactly.
It means you care. It means you care. Yeah.
Exactly. It's a good thing.
Yeah.
And you know it is, and you're like, I feel weird right now. The second that music comes on and 4 bars play and I start speaking, it's on. It's
because
on and running.
it's preparation.
It's preparation.
Because you've done all the work before you got
that's
there. If
where
you're
you
doing the
flip
work
it.
on stage, you've not done the work.
Yes.
Because you don't have time. It's interesting because the most important lessons I learned about acting and stage acting in general is playing contact sports, about being in the moment.
Interesting.
Because if you're not in the moment when you're playing rugby and you're thinking about like, well, what's going to happen 5 minutes from now, or what happened 2 minutes ago, I'm fucked. I'm going to break my collarbone.
Have a fucking bone.
You don't have time for it, and that's why you practice and you practice and you practice, because you only have time to react, right?
Yeah.
That moment, that artistic moment, I learned in athletics, and is sort of ingrained in me from all
So
my
interesting.
athletics of being on stage, nothing but now. But I can only create that moment with hours and hours and hours of preparation.
It's
know?
you can't decide when you enter the flow state, but you can gain some experience with it, and like, because you can't think I'm in the flow state or it's gone.
Right. Yeah.
Exactly.
You know, so it's just this
Yeah.
this weird. Don't look at it, but you know it's there.
Yeah.
But I also suspect in my life, and I don't deal with clinical emotional disorders in any way. Well, diagnosed.
Yeah. Hey, we're all somewhere on the spectrum.
Sorry, I mean diagnosed.
You're good.
But my experience is my emotional, spiritual health is the same as that. There's preparation that I can do to put myself in a state where I have a chance.
1,000%.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
I'm sure you know that with anxiety and
Absolutely.
depression, that, you know, you can do some work to give yourself a chance in those moments when it feels like something else is driving.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I've been
Exactly.
in therapy for literally over half my life now, and there's no way I would be as functioning today as I
Yeah.
am without that.
Yeah.
Because I was going when I was having good days too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it helped me, you know,
Yeah.
again, because it was preparing me for those bad times, you know?
Yeah. Well, and that's like real strength is being able to ask for help, is being able to access that help and being able to implement the help I've gotten.
Absolutely.
That's my experience of it. You know.
Again, that's putting the ego out of the way, though, at the same time as being able to ask for help
Yeah.
and to acknowledge that I am not
being
well.
comfortable being weak in certain ways and being like, that's fine, we all are. And yeah,
Absolutely.
just taking care of yourself.
Yeah, and I have
No.
to do the work to be able to put the ego aside. So it's sort of this loop, and I can be in that loop in a kind of positive sense, or I can be in a negative loop. Yeah, and I have to make that choice.
Absolutely.
It's a tough choice, you know, and
Yeah.
it's like inertia, you know.
Yeah,
It,
yeah.
it is, you know.
Yep.
If I'm at rest, I resist movement,
Yep.
and if I'm in movement, I resist, you know,
Rest.
a change.
Yeah,
a change to that.
exactly. Yeah.
So I want to be in movement in a positive direction,
That's fantastic.
you know.
Do we have more questions?
Oh
for
yeah,
them?
yeah. There's
please.
definitely some more. So we kind of touched on, or you kind of brought up, like the bigger budget, like Hollywood things you've been on. 300, Riddick, X-Men: Days of Future Past, which is funny. We were talking
Word.
about it. I was like, when I see like an actor that I like in like a Marvel movie, I'm always like, hell yeah, get that Marvel.
Get
Yeah,
that
yeah.
Marvel
So-
banks.
I'm glad you got that Marvel money. I'm glad I could say that face to face.
Yeah, yep, absolutely.
That's awesome. But I think we've talked a little bit about the difference between like scales of project. But do you find you have a better time on one or the other, or is it just sort of
That's a good question.
project by project?
It's a bit of both. Bit of both. I really like surrogate families. You know, like playing team sports. Do you know what I mean? You get this. Part of it is like a non-committal nature of I don't want to get too deep into my psychology,
You're all there because you want to
but
be.
there's something about transient families.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know about the bond of like
Yeah, and then it's over.
yeah.
Yeah.
You
Best
know?
part about being an uncle is I can send the kids back to their
It's like a one night
That's a good
stand with the
analogy.
whole family.
Exactly. But I do like that. I do like creating pretty tight bonds and pursuing common goals. And I find I've found that more on the smaller kind of scrappy productions, right? Where
Right.
everybody's bought in kind of on an emotional level.
Yeah.
Right? It's not just the money.
Less people are there for a paycheck.
Yeah. You know, working, but it's really cool working on, you know, walking onto a Marvel set.
Hell yeah.
It's kind of cool. I'm not going to lie.
The grandeur of it alone has got to be something to behold.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, totally. But it's a very different experience. It's a real kind of, you know, it's you know, you're a cog.
yeah.
Sort of.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
an important
yeah.
cog, but you know, you got to kind of know what your role is, what your part is. And that has, you know, has its own gratification. But I really like working on kind of smaller things. And I can only kind of make the comparison or contrast with things that I've had kind of bigger roles on, because that is more gratifying to, like, you know, bite off a little more.
Of course, yeah.
You know,
of course.
but I like the kind of smaller things. One of the most, I really think it comes down to character. The more interesting characters is the ones where, like, the caretaker, that one, like, that was just such an interesting character. It was such a crazy ride.
Yeah, that sounds super interesting.
And it was it was like a difficult production, because the guy who played Davies, we had to replace him 3 days before we
Oh,
opened.
shit.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because
That's a scramble.
And in rehearsing with someone else differently that whole time beforehand has got to be
we
like...
didn't. We were in tech.
Oh.
We didn't rehearse with the other guy.
okay.
So he was carrying the book for 2 weeks of the performance.
Shit.
It's crazy.
That's wild, yeah.
You gotta do what you gotta do.
Yeah, so it was intense. But that is, like, just one of the most amazing experiences I had. And then there was this show I did a few years ago, Canadian show called The Disappearance, where I played this... you should watch it. It's cool, like, little 6-episode mini-series.
Nice.
About a missing kid. And I have an interesting character. But I play a guy who's dying of leukemia, so it's yeah. And that was, I think, the ones where I have a chance to really collaborate are the ones that I have found most gratifying. Like that one with, I was talking about Douglas, about finding the character with him. And this one, The Disappearance, I was working with Peter Stebbings, was the director, and we worked on that character. I won an acting award, like, with my union, Canadian Union, for that performance. And I thank Peter and I, because it wasn't mine.
It was both of you, yeah.
I wouldn't have found it without his help, without his collaboration. I love that.
Yeah.
I love being directed. I love finding things I wouldn't have thought of.
Yeah.
Somebody giving me a little fucking tip that changes it.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
because I can't, just like, you know, I need outside feedback. You know, I need people in my life to mirror me back, so I can get an idea of who I am.
Yeah.
In a way, and how I'm doing.
100%. We that's why we send out tracks to people before they're released or whatever. Be like,
Yeah.
hey, what do you think of this, or
Yeah.
like whatever, because you have to get that constructive criticism back as well. Like,
Yeah.
you don't grow as an artist if you don't do these things. You know?
100%. There are some geniuses out there, like auteurs. I'm not one of them, you know, who can just kind of, like, come up with brilliance in isolation. I'm not that, you know. I do need the interaction. And so this show, The Disappearance, we found this thing that was just, and I ended up, it's interesting, I have my audition, it was a self-tape, and I have the scene that I auditioned, and they're so different.
But it's the same scene.
It's the same scene, and I did not a split screen, but did I? I may have put it up as a split screen, or I edited it onto one, because I was teaching I was visiting in Vancouver a couple of years ago. A friend of mine works at an acting school, and he asked me to come in and do a course on mocap and video games.
That's awesome.
So I ran that. One of the things talked about auditioning and collaboration, and I showed, well, here's my audition, and here's the
what
character.
you end up,
the finished product.
The finished product, exactly.
So different.
Very different.
So different.
I'd imagine.
Because what happened, like, I played, and it was sort of written sort of Machiavellian. This guy is coming up with this scheme, and it's the unfolding, it's the unveiling of his scheme. He's, like, dropping it on the guy he's been fucking with.
That Bond speech.
Yeah. And it was.
I expect you to die.
And I played it delicious. Like, he was just loving this moment. Like, it was every 2 years culmination of this plan coming together, and he loves it. But as we were shooting, Peter was kind of nudging me to say, like, we can't tip off, because I'm kind of not the There's a flip in the character. And he's just keeping me on this tightrope. And also, do you know the actor Peter Coyote?
No.
He was like the
That's
FBI.
a great name.
Yeah, I was like,
You do. You've seen him in everything.
He's one of those guys.
He's one of those
famous
guys.
that
Yeah,
guy.
he was like the FBI agent in E.T.
Oh, okay.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he narrates all the Ken Burns documentaries.
Oh,
You've seen him in a lot of
interesting.
stuff. Anyway, he's in his 70s, late 70s now, but he played.
Oh, 100%.
Oh, yeah.
100%.
Yeah,
Famous that guy.
and he's awesome. I fell in love with Peter. Like his character was the target of my plan.
Okay.
And in the end, I'm telling him what's happening. But as we were shooting, we sort of like fell in love in our own kind of way, you know, just fell for each other. And the characters just developed this rapport that in the moment when it was coming to this speech, I was terrified I didn't want to tell him. I didn't want to break his heart. And I wanted him to die also.
Yeah.
And I just started crying as I was telling him this, and it just became this whole other thing. Do you know what I mean?
That's so interesting.
awesome.
And that was
so
all
cool.
just being kind of open to whatever was happening and being open to collaboration. And it's so much better than what I came up with on my own.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's so interesting because like we keep talking about like it not being method, even if it has like shades of that, but like you really seem to be able to just become a vessel.
I think that's what, like, I think it's just try to be open to the moment. And I don't know what that is, and I don't have any, like, I do use music a lot. I use a lot of my life, like life experiences to try to conjure an emotional state I've been in before, but it's not method. Method is a whole thing, and I think that's tossed around a little bit. He
takes a look inside the door method. They just fling it open.
I love the show Babylon 5 from the 90s.
Oh my God, I haven't seen that in ages.
Oh, my brother. So Andreas Katsulas as Jakar. He was method.
Okay.
So he was walking around the set, and it's funny because he's a chain smoker in real life. So he was walking around the set, and that was the one kind of crossover was that he would smoke even while he was Jakar.
Okay.
But he would just walk around chain smoking, being like, "I am Jakar, the ambassador of the non-delegation, and how dare you treat me like?" And they're like, "Bro, we're at the craft table. Please just like."
Wow. Yeah.
I'm trying to eat the salad, man.
I love that performance. Jakar's performance in that show is
I'll have to revisit
one of my all times.
I never watched it. I've just seen a few episodes. I haven't watched the whole thing.
It's so fantastic.
I do think people toss around method a little bit. It's a method. Like it's a whole structure, and there is something of like sense memory that are elements of it. That I do. Like I've studied a little bit with John Strasberg, Lee Strasberg's son. And he uses kind of sense memory a lot in his work, and it's not method, but that was something that I found resonated with me. And I have a lot of a lot of old trauma, a lot of old weird things in my life that I have access to. And I think my job is to stay open to it, and keep access.
It's very empathetic. It's like you have like a hyper empathy that like allows you to really get into those characters' headspaces.
That's exactly what it is.
Is like what kind of how I feel it comes across.
Oh, cool.
And even you being an empathetic person in the first place, to be able to be like, how can I be of service to the situation and the people? That's a very empathetic thing, I think, to do.
I guess so. I think we need to be. I need to be in my life for my own mental health.
I feel it.
It's not an altruistic thing.
I feel it.
I can't remember where I heard it, but someone was like, "You ever notice no one goes method to like play like a really nice guy?" Everyone just always goes method to just be a huge asshole, and like.
Maybe we're inherently good.
Yeah, there you go.
You have to go.
That's
to an
adorable, man.
It takes a lot of effort to be an asshole.
Yeah.
We are by default kind and loving.
Yeah.
No work needed.
That's fantastic.
Hey, at least in this room.
Where are we moving on to next?
What else can we digress from?
Oh, I'm a little curious about. You said Tarsum.
Tarsum Singh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How was working with him?
He's amazing. He's look, every time I was on set, he was trying to manage Mickey Rourke, so he had his hands full. But he was just lovely. He was just like, and he's like a deep artist.
Yeah.
Like incredible. I remember when we just at the end of pre-production, I guess, is when I came on. He invited us all down to the studio to walk through all the maquettes of all the sets, and the all the mock-ups of all the wardrobe.
Which is, his wardrobes are crazy.
Just beautiful. I can't remember the costume designer. I can't remember her name, but she was amazing. Japanese woman. And but he took it. We spent a couple of hours, and like each set, he'd say, well, "This is Hyperion's thing, and this is the Beastmaster's lair, and this is, the God's arena, and his ideas, and like his inspirations for each one, and then with all the wardrobe, and took us all through it."
God, that's so interesting.
Yeah.
To even have it like tied to like stories and stuff like that for each wardrobe, each piece of clothing. That's so interesting.
I need to see that one. I've seen The Fall and The Cell, and they're just crazy.
I love The Fall.
I love that movie.
She showed it to me for the first time, and I was absolutely floored. Like,
I don't know how he made that movie, because he would change it based on what would come out of this little girl's mouth. She was changing the nature of the film.
Oh,
yeah. She's like 4 years old, and she's just saying these things, or like she sneezes, and then they in some faraway country that with all their costumes and everything, they do the scene based on her having sneezed. Just
it's fantastic.
I should have taken the opportunity to ask him some questions.
No, it's
film.
like one of the best transitions I've ever seen in my life.
As I've said before, you miss 100% of the show.
One more and it's yours.
One more and it's mine.
Yeah, it really is like that. Like that technicality, like working with people who have this like vision for what they have, and it's so focused. It's gotta be something else. You've got to recognize that while you're in the room with them.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's inspiring is not the right word, but it is inspiring. But I mean, it's astounding. Like it's really impressionnant in French. I can't think of what it is.
Damn near divine.
Damn near divine. It's something close to it, right?
Yeah.
Because like you're in the presence of something beyond, beyond a consciousness. I recognize.
I kind of get that. Like the last show we played before the pandemic was with this guy Sage Francis, who's a very big deal in sort of the realm that we.
I forgot that you
work
played
in.
with Sage. That's wild.
It was a highlight of my life, but definitely one of the biggest highlights was looking at him like performing and doing this song Morrison's Run, and literally looking around the room and just connecting with everybody in the room, and then looking at him at his merch table, and he just staring me right in the eyes, and I could just tell that I had Sage Francis's respect.
Yeah.
Just like that moment of like working with these people.
Yeah.
It's a little closer in like a film set than just like opening for somebody on a show. But having that like, shit, like we crossed paths in a real way. Like you saw me.
Yeah.
It wasn't just incidental.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and you realize that you're a colleague of somebody you look up to.
That weird moment of like, that peeling away the layers of the imposter syndrome.
That's
like,
exactly what I was going to say.
I do really do this.
Yep.
You know?
Yeah,
exactly.
Totally. It's a powerful moment, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So the next question is, what has been your standout favorite project? Like, do you have one?
And why is it slasher?
And why is it slashers? Well, no, it's like seriously though, slashers will always hold. Like it's a really. It was kind of it wasn't a breakout role, but it was like it's what started it.
Yeah.
Like the whole everything around it, the phone call I was talking about, and then the connections I made from it. It was like an inception point into a new world and a new direction in my life, which was, a powerful thing for a movie to be in my life.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And, and meeting Maurice Devereaux, who's like a really interesting cat. I learned a lot from him, like on this one, and then, end of the line. But in terms, I think Disappearance, I think I just spoke about that, and I won't get more into it, but that was a real standout from a character standpoint and a collaborative standpoint. And I really just loved that whole experience and everybody in it. And The Caretaker, from a theater
Yeah.
standpoint.
Absolutely.
That was really powerful. And Housekeeping and Homewrecking, which was the film that, not the play that my wife and I got together after. So
That's so good.
yeah, that's a peak moment.
It's a great title
Would you
too.
say, because we're talking a lot about the movies, but just because you sort of like delineated and we're like, oh, if I'm talking about this, plays and movies, I guess, is there like a video game experience that you would say is top compared to the others?
I love playing Charles Lee.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was a lot of fun. And also playing him through about 23 years,
Yeah,
right?
that's
you
the
meet him as a
crazy
young
thing.
man.
Yeah.
And then he's an older guy later.
That's interesting. I didn't think about that, but that is how those games work in terms of, because they show you the assassin's whole life. So his whole interactions with the founding fathers at first, like in Assassin's Creed 3.
Yeah.
And then later, once the country's a country.
Yeah,
You know?
Yeah.
So I love doing that. I love just the little delineation of how he moves when he's a young man and how he moves when he's an older man. A little bit of more gravel on the voice as
That's
he
so
gets
cool.
older.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's so cool to play
Starts
someone
off
aged
like
up.
Master Kenway. It's kind of like high.
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
he gets into only tell us where your village is, boy.
Oh, that's so good.
Gets more into a little more gravel.
Yeah.
I love it,
Damn.
man.
That's awesome. So we talked a little bit about the move, like how long you've been here. But what was, I guess, like the deciding factor around film or
No, Barcelona.
Barcelona?
What?
You're gonna have to
elaborate.
a little.
I wouldn't think an explanation is necessary.
He's like, I'll leave you with that. Thank you very much.
He's like,
Thank you very much.
I've talked enough. Barcelona.
Yeah, okay. So I'm from Montreal. It's winter there right now, so winter's a big part of it. And I was just talking a little bit about the trajectory of my wife and I and getting married and then getting my green card. So there's sort of like always a joke for Canadian actors of, and I was having some success and my friends are like, hey, when are you going to get your O1 visa and go down to LA? I'm like, I'm just going to marry my American.
Yeah.
That was the joke.
That's the plot of Born in East LA.
There are easier ways to go about this.
Yeah.
So funny.
And that was just a joke. But then it came to pass. And we had decided that when we were living in Toronto, we were like, well, first off, Paula had already been married, so it wasn't a big deal. Like she wasn't looking to get married again. I'm from Quebec, where really people don't get married a lot. Common law is really common.
Okay.
Interesting.
Really?
Yeah, I have a lot of friends who have been, living together for 20, 30 years, have adult children and never, got married.
Yeah.
So that's very common in Montreal. So I wasn't thinking of it. And we knew we were in a terminal relationship. Like it was the last one.
Yeah.
This is a terminal relationship.
That's I really love that. We were talking earlier about like the juxtaposition of tones. That's fantastic. Baby, what we got is terminal. hey, let's write a song after this.
I got
Terminal
you.
relationship.
Terminal relationship.
You can have that one. Yeah.
Much
The way like a PhD is a terminal. A PhD is a terminal degree, right? You can't go higher than that.
Yeah.
But then immigration was a thing. This was all my stories are long. I'm so sorry.
No, it's
No,
fantastic.
It's very romantic though.
Please.
So we're sitting we had just moved to Toronto and we kind of had a 5-year plan for Toronto. We'll be in Toronto for 5 years and see what happens and where we're going to go next. And there was somewhere like maybe we'll end up on the West Coast. Her family's still in Portland. At one point, she's reading a book, and I'm sitting on the couch on the iPad on the USCIS page, which is Customs and Immigration page, just kind of getting some information. I realized, if you've already been married for 2 years, it's sort of simpler to get along. Like you go right to a 10-year green card or something like that.
Okay.
You don't have to do the 2-year conditional.
Right.
And so I'm kind of like thinking out loud, going, what if I got married? Then if, a few years down the road, it might be easier. Like if we decide to do that. And she's like, and and I'm like, I'm thinking a little more, and I'm like, what if we did that? It's not a terrible idea. I'm like, do you want to get married? Like, what if we did
So
that? What if we went
romantic.
and got married like this fall? And this is what I see. She's reading her book. She just goes, yeah, it doesn't bother me being married. doesn't bother me being married.
Like, yeah, I'll have chicken for dinner
Yeah.
tonight.
She's like, I can stomach you.
Yeah, it doesn't bother me being married. It got a little more romantic after that. We flew to. I was shooting on X-Men at that time. I ended up, I think, right after that, booking X-Men and then booking Helix.
Oh, wow, okay.
So I ended up back in Montreal for 5 months. But we ended up flying to Portland. I asked her parents if, for her hand. It was
Aw.
it was a
Then
gimme.
it got romantic.
I was taking no risks there. We got along great.
Great.
But then I was like, I booked Helix, and I'm like, well, I don't want to wait till like January to do this. And she didn't want a big wedding. I didn't. And I'm like, why don't we go away somewhere? And we just decided on Vegas and Elvis.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, because
Oh, wow.
I was shooting, and so in the middle of shooting Helix that week, I asked them to push all my scenes to the end of that week so we could take a weekend and get married
Yeah,
and come back
yeah.
and keep shooting. So then we honeymooned in Barcelona.
Oh, okay.
And
Here we go.
I don't know if you've been to Montreal or Toronto.
Haven't.
No.
Montreal
Only
is-
Vancouver.
No.
Okay, Vancouver's all right. The motto for Vancouver should be Vancouver. It's fine.
It's a town.
It's a town.
People live
My
here.
brother lives in Vancouver, and I love it.
Population. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, we got one.
So Montreal's beautiful, and there's a certain majesty in Montreal. Like there's a culture. There's like a really deeply artistic culture. The French Canadian culture I love, and it's also very European. And like the old town is gorgeous, and there's just a lot of majesty and history and culture in Montreal. When I had visited LA, there's a majesty just topographically and geographically here. The mythology, like I grew up listening to the Doors. There's like a Jim Morrison mythology in my blood.
Yeah,
That I
yeah.
stand, on the Hollywood Hills, going like, oh, and the desert, and I love it. And there's a majesty here that I love. Toronto, well, it's a good city. Like there's a lot, good nightlife and stuff, but there's nothing majestic about it. It's quite flat. There's one tall building. It's a cool lake. And but it's not majestic. And so when we had traveled a bunch, and we were always whenever we traveled, like to Paris and Belgium, and when we come home, we'd come back to Montreal. And it was like, so when you're coming home, you're going, back to Montreal, back to all this cool, it's a good city to come back to.
Yeah.
When we were honeymooning in Barcelona, about 3 days before we were coming back, we're like, first off, we were like, Barcelona, if there was an industry here, we'd move there. And if we could work in Barcelona,
of course.
this is where we'd live. I love it. We were coming back, and we were like, okay, so going back in 3 days, and we're like, oh, we're going home to Toronto. We're really going to have to look hard for beauty.
That end
so
of the
good.
vacation,
Yeah.
works on Monday.
Yeah, totally.
yeah.
Yeah.
Because like in Barcelona, there's just beauty everywhere. Like just like there are random benches looking at a Gaudi building, and Toronto doesn't have that sense of majesty. I never felt that about it. And so we started thinking about, well, maybe we head to California, because we both quite liked it. So anyway, I ended up getting my green card, and
It's a wild
coming out
medium to choose from, like between Montreal.
But like we're both actors, and like it's a place you can come and potentially work.
Yeah, if you were gonna be anywhere where the action is,
Where
There's a lot of stuff going on.
Where there's no winter.
There's
I don't know.
there's
Yeah.
a worse place for a guy with a Frank Miller joint and an X-Men movie on his resume.
Although I've really not worked down here at all in film and in television. I really
Really?
haven't. All my work ended up being back in.
That's so funny.
well, look, you
That's-
come down here at 45 years old
Yeah.
into this pool. Like I had no illusions of like I'm going to be coming down and Hollywood's going to be like, finally.
Yeah,
We have all these roles we can't
We've
fill
been
because we
waiting
can't
for
find
you.
any 45-year-old white guys. Right? All the guys down here in my casting, have resumes and reels bigger than mine, have been in this system for 30 years. So like I had no illusions about that, and I knew, and we didn't come out here for work. We came out here for lifestyle. I love the
Interesting.
mountains. I got my motorcycle license, and I ride every day.
Oh
and,
man.
go backpacking, camping out in Joshua Tree and up in the mountains. I just love Southern California.
Nice.
It's beautiful.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and my wife loves it here, and we just have like a lifestyle that we love.
Yeah.
And work was still happening up in Montreal and Toronto, and my wife does voice work, and so actually during the pandemic she's worked a little more because she didn't have to book something in Montreal or Toronto.
Yeah.
They're more used to patching in now.
Yeah.
So we have a little recording studio in our, office.
Cool.
And she'll record spots.
Very cool.
We're gonna have to talk a little bit after this because I playtest games for Sony sometimes, and I know the lead audio engineer at Sony in San Mateo.
Oh, okay.
So I was thinking about that earlier. I was like, well, there might be some synergy there for you two if I put you two in a conversation.
Always happy to talk to people. Sure, man.
Yeah. Get you in the next God of War.
Why not? It's been a minute.
You ever think about being Kratos?
Let me hear your angry Viking.
I have to move this away. So what was the question that I just gave that long answer to?
Just what was the impetus to move here?
Yeah, you did answer.
Barcelona.
You did. Yeah,
Barcelona.
Barcelona.
I tried to give you a short answer, man, but you wouldn't have it.
Yeah. It's funny because you mentioned the architecture. Like I'm also a skater, and Barcelona is very, very famous for skateboarding. It's like one of the best places in the world to skate.
Oh, wow.
And it's because of just the take on
strange
architecture that has
yeah.
happened there, and people aren't very bothered by it. Like Makba, the museum, is like one of the most famous skate spots in the world.
Really?
And people just skate right in front of the museum on the ledges. And everyone's fine with it. No one cares. They let people come and go that are doing their thing, and everyone just lets the skaters do their thing.
Yeah,
I love it.
It's a trip.
It's so good.
Yeah,
so cool.
So I've always wanted to go to Barcelona.
Oh, it's amazing. Yeah, it's just so beautiful. And Parc Gaudi is incredible, and all of it. Yeah, do it.
Yeah, definitely.
Don't wait to get married. You can just go like.
That's the thing. I've been wanting to go to Japan all pandemic. I finally saved up enough money right before the pandemic hit, and me and my girlfriend want to do that. So for the last 2 years, there's been all these false starts of they're starting to let people back into. Nope, the Olympics ruined that, and so now we gotta wait. But it's just this funny damn, I'm finally ready to travel, but you won't have me.
Yeah, it's that line is if you want to make God laugh, make a plan.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So what are you working on now? Are you working on anything?
I'm working in location management and scouting right now. That's kind of been my focus this year because during the pandemic, work up north dried up a little bit, and it's been a little more. Not that I've been jaded on the acting side of things, but I was just kind of looking for a bit of a different focus, and been writing. I wrote a screenplay, which I'm going to start pitching around soon, which is an absurd comedy about wrestling.
Nice.
I love that.
Not about wrestling.
I love that.
You already cast me as the next Chainsaw Giant.
Catch me in.
It's about a French Canadian kind of backyard wrestler who sees baby Jesus in Sweat Lodge and is told to go wrestle the demons out of people across Canada.
Fucking need this movie. That is so good.
It makes me think of Danny McBride, the Foot Fist Way.
Yeah.
He's a Taekwondo instructor, but he's a scammer. He's not really a black belt.
Oh,
yeah, black comedy type of.
Yeah, no, this guy is he's earnest and sweet, and
so funny.
It's called the Unitard.
That's so great. I love it. I love that so much.
That's fantastic. I love that. I really hope that we can see that very soon.
Hopefully I get that done. So that's been a focus. My wife's been writing a little more too. She's got a couple of things going that we're trying to get some traction to. And in the last year I've been doing location management and scouting, and I just find I love scouting, man.
Nice.
Meeting with the director and production designer, go over the script and try to find find the playground for the story.
Yeah, you mentioned hiking and Joshua Tree and everything. So obviously you love nature. So it seems like it's
marrying your hobbies and your job.
Yeah, and it's a decent paycheck, which is nice too. You know what I mean? So it's that's a reality about living here.
Yeah.
You got to make some money.
Yep.
Absolutely.
And I love just riding my motorcycle around trying to find places. And, and then I even find when we're shooting, the logistics of the locations department. I didn't think I'd love that, but I love it.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Sometimes numbers make sense to people. And it's comforting. I get that. 1,000%.
And I'm a little obsessive, so once there's a problem that needs shooting. I love it. Yeah, I'm kind of dog with a bone.
That's so fun.
That was something that they were talking about at my job recently. Was they were when you wake up, they were talking about the power of making your bed, which is like something that I like, that I like for years I've done. And just that you start your day, it's a very easy task. Boom, the dopamine is rolling. You've gotten that feedback of doing a task and doing it well.
Accomplishing it.
And then you're just on for the rest of the day. Like as soon as you do that and mount those small victories, it's easier to build towards like a bigger victory.
Interesting.
100%. And like I think like that also that thought, that idea to a kind of spiritual approach to the day too, you know, like in terms of, you know, meditation or just state of mind. I always think of just angles, right? Because if you start, I know this is a podcast, but doing a little visual thing here. But
They're going to watch it. No, they're watching it. Yeah, they're watching it at home.
So, right, like something like swinging a mace or something that's not maybe not the best thing.
Let's start there.
But even swinging your arm, like the distance at the fulcrum point here is minimal, right? From here to here.
Yeah.
But the distance it's moved out here at my fingertips is appreciable, right? It's so if my day starts, I can do nothing right here and say spiritually or even, you know, with accomplishments or a sense of doing something, my line is sort of like this because I'll do things. But if I start my day just with knock it off a little bit of an angle, by the time I get to 5 in the afternoon, the difference in my day I've created with 5 minutes of meditation or making my bed can be vast.
That's a great way to put that.
You know,
absolutely
and it's
incredible.
like just the arm, like at a fulcrum point, and the distance. I'm always just kind of fascinated with that idea. If I can make a little change at the beginning of my day, well, what does that translate out at the end of the day or the week or the year or whatever?
Yeah.
Well, but for this one, we're going to use the chainsaw.
Yeah, so we're gonna chainsaw. Yeah, so at the inner part of the blade, you know, you're only going to cut so.
We were talking about that earlier with I play a lot of Japanese video games and stuff, and it's like a lot of them are very, very long, and it's like, oh, it's a 100-hour game, but if I start it, I will get to the end, and there's all this awesome, you know, worth for me to pull out of it through it. But if I just sit here and go, it's 100 hours, when I'm going to have 100
The hardest
hours,
part is starting. The hardest part is getting
you
started.
just have to take those steps in anything and build towards that.
Yeah, and it's, you know, also that kind of idea can be translated to the thought of, you know, perfect is the enemy of good, or perfect is the enemy of done.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
I like
Absolutely.
that. I like that.
I'm not going to start unless I can see the finish.
Yeah.
But also, fuck, man, I don't know how it's going to end.
Yeah. Yep.
That's the hard part about starting anything new. I think especially is like having something that you're good at already.
Yeah.
Of like, you're just like, well, I'm not great at this already.
Yeah.
Where like for me, like the first time I rapped, I was like I love skateboarding. I never felt good at it.
Yeah.
I was always like, there's other people jumping down handrails, doing all this stuff. I'm not very good at it. I love it. It's fulfilling. It is what it is. I'm realistic with myself. Rap, as soon as I started it, I was like, no, I'm good at this.
Yeah.
This is what I want to do. So like trying to get into production, making beats, it's like I have to really hold myself to the fire and be like, no, this isn't fun.
It's a different part of your brain
but
that
you
you're
will
using.
eventually get there. It's not as immediately gratifying, but if you want this other skill set, you have to work.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You know? Like...
Yeah, totally. Because it's easy to pick something up and have a facility with it and stop there. Because it is gratifying to be good at something right away.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, that's what I've kind of talked to. I've been in recent conversation with friends, and like everyone has this sort of, I'll get to it eventually sort of attitude. But it's like, I tell people all the time, like the only way to learn how to do something is just to dive in and start doing it.
Yeah.
Like, you know, whether it be content creating a podcast, like whether it be getting into acting, like doing anything, you just need to dive in and learn along the way.
100%. Like that's how I built an acting career. It was just like I, you know, had this, you know, kind of one, I don't know if it was lucky or fortunate, you know, right place, right time, not hanging up the phone, you know, and then I was good at it. Like it was just something like, I have a facility for this.
Absolutely.
And I also realized that I'm not going to theater school. I'm 30 something years old. I'm not going back to school, but I need to learn. So I ended up learning on other people's dimes, right? Like I'm gonna do your fringe show. I'll do your student film. I'll do
Shit,
whatever.
you work for exposure.
I'll work for exposure for a little while.
Yeah.
like we talked about. That's the thing is a lot of artists
Yeah.
never get to the point where they pull away those layers of imposter syndrome to go, well, now I've been doing this for 3 years.
Fuck you, pay me.
I deserve a little gas money.
Yeah.
And it builds up from there.
And there was something that was conscious on my part was I retrained my sort of response to fear, right? Because what would happen, somebody would ask me to do something and I've never done it. So I don't want to. I want to say no.
Yeah.
And so I would just go, yep. And then fucking panic. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know what the fuck. What did I fucking just agree to do? I've never done Shakespeare. I've never done mask work.
Yeah.
And I've just been asked to do this mask show with this troupe, and we write our own, make our own masks and write our own stories. I've never done any of that.
Yeah.
But I just agreed to it.
Fun.
Yeah.
Because this, woman saw me in a play and she liked what I did, and they were putting on this thing, and I'm like, yeah. And then, hey, I know how to make a mask and write a compelling, funny piece and perform it.
Sure as hell know how to wear one.
I know how to wear a mask.
you gotta cut your teeth somehow, and
Absolutely.
I'm sure we both had the experience of I'm so proud of this new song or whatever. You play it, not the response you expected.
No, absolutely.
And you just have to walk away from that.
It's not yours anymore. It's someone else's. It's up to them to receive it and to interpret it out.
You gotta live on the other side of that experience and take it.
You just have to say yes to it, right? Because my fear is going to stop me, and it's
Absolutely.
and it's a fallacy.
Some experiments
Right.
fail, and you have to be knowledge, know that going into it. That there's a chance.
Yeah.
Because you can't, if you're always, I'm going to win everything, I'm the best, then you're going to be really upset when it doesn't work. But if you're...
Unless you're just the best, which
Yeah.
that would be awesome.
And for some people, that drives them in
Some people can just
a
start at
way
the top. Yep.
that I can't fully comprehend, but it is just that building up.
Absolutely. Well, we have had an amazing time. I think.
Absolutely.
I think that's about time. We better let this man get to a hockey game.
I got some hockey to watch, Mike.
Absolutely. But thank you so much for coming on to the
I think
show.
we have
man.
one more question to end it off.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, by all means.
Which is, what movie do you recommend?
Absolutely.
What we would love to cover
I'm
a
so
pick
excited.
of yours on this.
Like
And we
a horror thriller film
Yeah.
that, boy. One of my favorite all time that just creeped the hell out of me was The Changeling.
Oh, the Changeling
Like the
is
old
so
one, like the
70s
one,
The 70s
yeah.
one
Okay.
is so good.
Joseph.
Yeah, it's oh yeah, hell yeah, we're doing the Changeling, baby. Yeah, that's awesome. I love that movie, and I don't know a lot of people who really even talk about it even these days.
Is it a Canadian film?
I have no idea. I couldn't tell you that, but I know.
There's no way of finding out.
If only there was some magical.
If only I had
Magical
I
tablet.
loved that movie
take
when
a
I
look.
first saw it, though, and yeah, it was one of those things where I thought it was because is it a remake? I don't know if they completely
J.
just.
Michael Straczynski, the writer of B5, did another movie that I think is also called Changeling, but it's about a child who disappeared.
That was Angelina Jolie, wasn't one?
No, there was one with Nicole Kidman.
Is that what
Was that? No, that was the others.
Oh yeah, that was the
Oh,
others.
yeah,
Yeah,
I think I'm thinking of
There
the
is another
JMS
chain.
movie.
This one they have the
yeah.
the medium who's
The
just
medium
writing on
was
papers and
throwing it. Yeah.
I think it's Canadian.
I think it
Oh
is
wow,
Canadian.
interesting.
Oh, yeah,
That's
awesome. Even better.
So the movie that I'm thinking of, The Changeling 2008, is directed by Clint Eastwood, and it was written by JMS. And in his
that was Jolie, right? Angelina Jolie. Wasn't she she's like the mother
Yep,
who they're
Angelina
they're
Jolie is-
gaslighting her and
Yeah,
stuff.
that's the whole
yeah,
thing. Is the
yeah.
cops just and it's a true story. The cops just completely fucked up, and then they gaslit this woman into going insane and spending the rest of her life in an asylum.
It's,
Right. That was an interesting movie too. But the one I'm talking about.
But the one, the one he's
It was
talking
like
about.
a 1970s.
That shit is terrifying,
Yeah,
dude.
it was
It's
so
so
creepy.
well done.
Yeah.
The practical effects in there are very well done. It's a subtle movie.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no. If you love Skinamarink, you're gonna love the Changeling. Yeah, and if you love the Changeling, you're gonna love the Skinamarink. Yeah,
Check it out.
absolutely.
Well, hell yeah! Thank you.
Dude, thank you so much for being
surreal.
this is absolutely we could not. You can't imagine how excited we were to get the call from her saying like, "Hey, like
the 5 a.m. message."
yeah.
I was watching
No one
the
was
credits.
awake.
No
I
one
was
was
watching the credits, and I know this guy.
yeah, dude.
Like,
I woke up and was like, "What the? What?"
Yeah, I had a double take. I was like, "Wait, excuse me." No, absolutely. But thank you so much for coming on.
It was
We
my
really
pleasure,
appreciate
guys. I'm glad that the slashers is still bringing joy. Into
Yeah,
Absolutely.
absolutely. It's, don't be surprised if we try to pressure Evelyn into messaging you about maybe a end of the line episode down the street.
Well, yeah, I would love to have you
Very
back
different
on.
movie, but I definitely love to
I would
come back
love
and
to
talk
have
about
you
it.
back on.
That would be fun to do. Maybe just to directly talk about the movie because
Yeah, sure, yeah.
Yeah, now you've got all the information
backstory,
that you didn't
the
need.
meat of it.
No, we are so grateful to you for being on
Yeah,
this.
this has
Like,
been
thank you
awesome.
so much. Like our little show, like we're knowing, man. Like, but this means the world to us right now
Awesome.
to be able to. Again, it's something that we've covered. That's the deepest possible cut.
Yeah, it really is.
It is
Pretty deep one.
absolutely,
Yeah.
and again, that was like the backbone of this show was I wanted to do movies that people aren't talking about. So
The movies that like you love to be like, oh, you like this? Let me give you this.
Yeah,
But doing it
exactly.
in like a wide way
Yeah.
where it's like that's what we were doing. We were just
Yep.
messaging each other. He was like, we met because of another friend of ours booked a show down here for me when I was on tour.
Okay.
And he booked Sideshow as like local support, and so we met there. Talked a little bit. We're friends on Facebook for a while.
This is years later, though. Years
he
later.
posted something about a movie that I like, and I was like, "Oh, if you like that, you got to check this out and this out and this out."
it just became
And
the
then
big
it just-
brother relationship. Like, hey,
Right.
kid, check this out.
Yeah, and then he started hitting me with so many recommendations, and now most of the time when they're like, "Oh, I've seen this movie and I love it," I'm like, I'm so out of the loop, and that's like my kind of impetus to do the podcast. Is like now I have a great reason to
Yeah.
sit down and watch hand-picked movies.
Yeah.
And how do you guys all know each other? How do you know these?
Literally
fellas?
all through a film group. It's a film
Facebook?
group on Facebook.
Yeah.
We randomly met. We
wow.
randomly
in
met.
a group, yeah.
Yeah,
and
on
we were-
Facebook. This was like a year
The
and a
A24
half.
group?
Yeah, probably like into us knowing each other. Like
Probably not A24 film group.
Yeah, the not A24 film group. And then like literally
Yeah.
one day she had invited me. We had just been talking and had the mutual love of like obscure horror movies. And then like she was like, "Oh, we're having a barbecue one day, and if you're I know you're nearby, so if you want to come down." I was like, I don't have anything going on, so yeah, I'll roll over. Little did I know we're now best friends doing a show together. Like,
Very cool.
it's very small, and then they only met through me.
Yeah, we did our first episode before we
episode.
ever met.
Oh, really?
I never met.
Yeah, we just went straight into it.
we hopped on a Zoom because we talked about it for a while. We were like, this would be great. I wanted to do a podcast for so long, but it just, various ideas that never came
I
together.
crashed your guys' podcast.
Yeah.
That's
Not
what
even
happened.
no.
We were talking-
Enhanced.
We were
Yeah.
talking about it
Enhanced.
for like a year, and we kept doing that, like kind of like we were talking about earlier.
Exactly.
The classic,
Yeah.
Yep.
We'll start it later. We'll start it later.
Yep.
We'll start it later. And then he comes to me one day and he's like, "Hey, man, like totally respectful, not in any way like sideways, but just like." Me and my friend Evelyn have been talking about similar things and watching all these movies and blah, blah, blah.
Let's go.
So I really want to move forward, but I would like your blessing. And I
Yeah.
was like, man, I don't want to hold you back, but you're so right. And we just got to jump off the ledge and do this.
Yeah.
Let's try and do this.
And then we did it, man.
And then
Here we are.
We got on a Zoom to introduce ourselves, and we had already all watched High Tension.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
we were like, fuck it, let's do an episode right now.
High
chat about
tension. Yeah, exactly. So that's literally what we did. We had no idea what the format of the show was going to be or anything. Like, it
Okay.
was just like, this is all very natural. You know what I mean? Now here we are. We've been out since July, so about like 6-7 months now.
About 20
Okay.
episodes.
20 episodes in.
Almost, yeah.
Yeah.
This is gonna be, and this actually comes out on Valentine's.
Oh,
So yeah, so
Slashers for Valentine's.
grab your sweetheart.
Does Chainsaw Charlie have a message for the lovers out
Yeah,
there?
yeah. Before we go, please close us out. I would love to hear
Oh my
from you.
God, I don't know if I could do like a whole sentence in
No,
Chainsaw Charlie.
Let me give.
Howdy, folks. I hope y'all have a good Valentine's and enjoyed our episode here. It was lovely meeting these folks. And I hope to see them all again when we discuss End of the Line.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a real nice time.
His is better.
Well,
I haven't done that in 20
moved
years.
on from it.
And B, I've never done that without the teeth in.
Yeah.
That's right, because there's like a whistle.
Yeah. Well, thank you for doing that. I appreciate. Like, you've now made the entire show. Like, that's it. So, if you guys enjoy this, please rate, review, and subscribe. All the goodies. Please let us know if you want more like this. We would love to have other guests on. You know, down the line, I'm sure. But like, this is
leverage Evelyn's little black book
that I didn't know I had.
So, but thank you guys so much for joining us. Please on iTunes, Spotify, all that. You know what to do. I don't even
hit us with that good 5-star.
Exactly.
It helps. You know, one person gave us an angry 1-star at the beginning, and we're still recovering. We're at like 4.5 stars. Wow. I was like, it's definitely someone who hates me, guys.
Absolutely. No, we're good. So yeah, thank you guys for joining us. We'll be back next week. Oh wow, that's right. Okay, so I don't know if we actually.
Because after this is going to be Mandy.
And then
so after that's going to be,
Yeah, so you guys are getting a treat. Next week is our video episode of Mandy. This was such a fun episode,
an
dude.
absolute
That was
fever dream.
It was incredible.
The quasi Mandy / Vampire's Kiss episode.
Yeah. Thank you guys for joining.
That's a fever dream.
Oh boy. Thank you guys for joining us. We'll be back. Take care, you guys. Late.